Hey there, welcome to Brad Arrows. Tonight, we've got hours of chilling horror stories combined with soothing rain sounds to help you relax and sleep. Before you drift off, leave a comment below and let us know where you're listening from and what time it is. If these stories give you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get cozy and let the fear take over. This happened last year in New York, and is also the reason I never backpack alone anymore. I was taking summer courses at the time, and we ended up with a 4-day weekend in July. So I thought it was a great time to go explore some of the Adirondack wilderness. I did a Google search and found a state park with a trail that looked nice, then let my roommate and family know the trail I was going to be on. When I got close to the park area, I saw a little outdoor shop where people hiking the long path stop. I went in to grab a map of the area, just in case I got lost. As I was talking to the owner, he mentioned a trail that's not well known that has a pretty cool waterfall and swimming hole. This piqued my interest, so I had him show me on the map. It took me outside the state park, but he said it was a great place to go. I paid for the map and thanked the owner. I texted my roommate and parents about the new trail, and I parked my car and set off on my adventure. I should note that the waterfall was going to be a side trip for my journey. I was planning 4 days, 3 nights. I started on a part of the long path, and it was pretty packed with people, and some of them were really fun to talk to, as expected. As I got further and further from the main trails, I saw less and less people around. Early afternoon, 4 miles from my destination, I noticed it was unnaturally silent. There were no birds, no bugs, not even wind, and I had a feeling of being watched. I shook it off as me overanalyzing the situation. I got to the waterfall, and it wasn't too spectacular, but it was cool to look at, plus it had a good-sized area to swim in. So naturally, I stripped down to my underwear and took a dip. It was pretty refreshing. As I was getting my clothes back on, I started whistling to myself. It was Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because it was stuck in my head. That's when I heard something whistle the same tune back. I thought it was a bird copying me, so I went back and forth with it, and it would repeat whatever I whistled. I thought it was pretty neat. As I was setting up camp, I couldn't shake this feeling that I was being watched again. Like I'd get goosebumps and my hairs would stand up. As night fell, I built a small fire and lit my camp stove to make dinner. As I did this, I became hyper-aware that again, there was no sound. Just deafening silence. Some part of my brain was telling me that I'm not safe and to get out of there. I ignored it and crawled into my tent with my flashlight and book. I went to sleep without incident. When I woke up the next morning, my sight was trashed. My camp chair was nowhere to be found. My bear bag with my food was cut down, and the contents were thrown across the site. My first thought was a crafty animal chewed through the rope and got at the bag, but I looked at the rope, and it was cut with something very sharp. Plus, none of the food was even touched. I also noticed bare footprints all around my campsite. Keep in mind, I'm at least 8 to 10 miles from a road. As I was looking at the mess, I heard a branch snap off in the distance, and I turned to look in that direction. I saw nothing, but I heard that whistling again. My whistle from yesterday, but it was different. It sounded more sinister. It made my hair stand on end. And this is when I listened to my instincts to get the hell out of there. It sounded like it was a little off in the distance, so I packed up my camp as fast as I could. The whistling got closer as I finished stuffing the tent into my bag. I didn't bother with putting anything away properly. The whistling was incessant and sounded like it was coming from all directions. I got fed up with the whistling. I stood up and I yelled into the woods, "Shut up, what do you want?" It stopped whistling, and it was quiet for a moment. Then it repeated what I said in my voice. It sounded just like me, but distorted, like it came from an old television. After I heard this, I immediately threw my pack on and ran the direction I came. I heard it moving just behind me, fast, switching between the whistle and my voice. It felt like it was toying with me, not coming too close, but not being too far. Eventually, it sounded like it got further and further away from me, then it stopped suddenly. When it stopped, I stopped and turned around. I wished I didn't, because I heard the most bone-chilling screech ever, coming from right next to me. That's when I started running again. I didn't look. I only ran. Less than half a mile, I ran into a couple that was also backpacking. They saw the look of terror in my face and asked if that was me that screamed, and they asked me if I was okay. I told them about what happened, and they decided to not go down where I just came from. We moved to a more populated trail as quickly as we could. As soon as I got back in my car, I drove to one of the park ranger stations and reported what happened. Since the site was off park grounds, they told me it wasn't in their jurisdiction, but they'll send a ranger to investigate. The ranger station's parking lot runs right up to the woods, and when I was getting into my Honda, I heard the "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" tune coming from the woods just in front of me. I have never driven so fast in my life. When I told my roommate why I was back after only one night, all he said was, "Bro, I'm never going camping with you." I'm an 18-year-old guy currently living in Charlotte, North Carolina. This incident took place around 7 months ago on an overnight trip into the Blue Ridge Mountains, which are about a 2-hour drive west of Charlotte. I'm not going to specify the exact trail because I've been doing this stuff long enough to realize what happens when you post locations on the internet. Whether it's a good trail, abandoned cabin, or whatever it may be, people come flocking, and usually with a lot of trash and loud music. Anyway, this particular trail I was taking was a 9-mile loop through a mountain valley. Pretty simple in and out overnight trip. I planned to go with my buddy Marcus, but at the last minute, he had to cancel due to a family emergency, and I was left on my own. So with a packed bag and a Jeep ready to go, I decided to head out solo. Not leaving the house on time and some trouble navigating rough mountain roads, I didn't arrive at the trailhead until around 6:15. For those of you who don't backpack, this is a very big no-no. I had about a 4.5-mile hike until I arrived at my planned camping spot, and it was getting dark fast. So I figured if I moved quick enough, I could get at least 3 miles in before I had to find a spot. This strategy left me hiking a very dark trail on my own, with about 20 miles of winding mountain road between me and everyone else. Hiking in the dark by itself is scary, especially in these mountains, and being on my own made it worse. Eventually, it got so dark that I could only see where my headlamp was pointing. And that's when I figured I needed to stop and get a camp set up. With only using the headlamp as my light source and trying to move fast, I ended up in a less than ideal spot. But there were some charred pieces of wood and the remains of a fire ring. so it looked like people had been there before, but definitely not recently. The site was tucked between two large boulders, with thick pine trees surrounding the small clearing. My first priority was to get a fire going. I scanned the area around me and was able to find some dry wood, and I got the fire crackling. I got my tent set up and cracked open a pouch of beef stew I'd brought for myself and was very much looking forward to eating. I was feeling good. My camp was set up and my food was heating over the fire. The feeling of uneasiness from the hike in had almost gone away, but it was still there in the back of my mind. I guess it's a side effect of camping alone in such a remote area. To fully understand what happened, I have to explain to you how my camp was set up. The site I picked was a small clearing surrounded by massive pine trees, with the trail about 40 feet to my left. When you're in the woods and have a fire going, the fire casts a circle of light around it, and everything on the edge of that circle and past it is pitch black darkness. I was sitting on a fallen log near my fire, eating my dinner, when a small stone about the size of a golf ball was thrown into my camp. I looked at the rock in shock, as I was positive that I was the only person on this trail that night. I immediately turned my light on and toward the area where I'd seen the rock come from. But due to the density of the pine trees and undergrowth, I could only see about 15 feet. I spent the next 20 minutes in disbelief as I scanned the tree line that surrounded me, searching for what or whoever had thrown that rock. Not daring to stray too far from my fire, which in hindsight offered me a false sense of security. After sitting back down and spending the rest of my time on high alert, I was able to convince myself that I'd somehow kicked the rock or it had fallen from a tree. I went to sleep that night not expecting the pure terror that was about to unfold. I woke to the sound of rustling leaves, barely audible if you weren't listening for them, but they were there. Still in a sleepy daze, I listened as the rustling of leaves got harder to hear, as I assumed they were moving away from me. I went to grab my handheld flashlight that I'd left next to me when I'd fallen asleep, but the more I looked, the more scared I got, as I came to realize that it was no longer there. I stood up in my sleeping bag and ducked out of my tent and looked around. I was able to see a light off in the woods. It couldn't have been more than 20 feet away. It was my flashlight laying on the ground in a pile of dead leaves. This is one of the few moments in my life where I have almost wet myself. The flashlight that I'd left sitting right next to me when I'd fallen asleep a few hours ago was now 20 feet away from me, past the tree line in the woods. I hurriedly slipped my hiking boots on, clutching my camping knife in the other hand and keeping my head on a swivel. I weighed my options. Stay here and wait out the night, or attempt the 4-mile hike back to the car in the dark. I figured that whatever or whoever was out there with me was definitely going to have a better advantage if I was out on the trail without light. So I decided to stay at the camp and wait out the night. Eventually, it came back. I could hear it walking through the woods. It was far off, but I could hear it. It sounded like someone leisurely walking by, like they were on a casual stroll without a care in the world. Sometimes it would walk too far away, and I would lose the sound of its steps. But then an hour later, maybe 2, it would return, still faint as ever. This went on for about 4 or 5 hours, until I listened to the steps get closer and closer, until they were about 10 feet from me. At this point, the fire had gotten very small as I'd run out of wood from my pile. The footsteps stopped, and everything went totally silent. I sat there still for 3 hours, clutching a knife in my hand, and prayed that I wouldn't hear anything else. I stayed like that until the sun cast enough light that I could see that I was alone in my campsite. I packed my things and walked the 4 miles back down the trail I'd taken. I arrived at the empty dirt parking area where my Jeep was parked and nearly sprinted to it. As I unlocked my vehicle and jumped in and drove, I didn't stop until I put at least 30 miles between me and that place. I stopped at a gas station in Morganton to buy an energy drink, but mostly just to see or talk to another person. As I exited the store, I was able to read what was written in the dust on the back window of my Jeep. "Sleep well," it said. "A lot of weird things have happened to me on my various adventures through North Carolina, but this is the weirdest and scariest by far, so I thought I'd share it. There is a seriously deranged person living in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Do yourself a favor and stay as far away from those mountains as you can." Enough time has passed, but I still can't forget this story. It became a part of me, and I became a part of it. Every night I have the same dream, the same plot that drives me crazy, forces me to go back to the past and relive this nightmare again and again. There were 4 of us, a group of young people in our early 30s who remained friends even after college graduation. Me, my girlfriend Emma, who I met in freshman year chemistry class, Tyler, my buddy since childhood, and Jessica, his partner. We had one good tradition. Every summer we would go out into nature and have camping trips. Fortunately, there were plenty of beautiful and scenic places in Oregon, so we never had to think long about where to go. One hot July day, Tyler suggested we head to a lake where an old summer camp used to be located. As a child, he often went there with his parents to vacation and knew the route by heart like the back of his hand. The journey was quite far. That place was located in the wilderness, and you had to drive at least 25 miles to the nearest town. Dense forests all around. In general, everything just as we liked it. We packed for the road in a hurry. We took some food, various drinks, blankets, and swimming gear. We planned to sunbathe until evening and then drive back home. Just a typical summer adventure. If only we had known what this trip would cost us. "Tyler, testing. Can you hear me? Over," I said into the walkie-talkie to my friend, while sitting behind the wheel of my car. The 2 of us were driving along a busy highway, Tyler in his car ahead since he knew the road, and me following behind. Our girlfriends were sitting in the front passenger seats. We were chatting, listening to music on the radio, and just enjoying the moment. "Yeah, Marcus, I hear you perfectly, man. See, I told you this thing would come in handy. Here we are heading out into nature where cell phones don't work, but we're still in contact. Yeah, I agree, useful device. Listen, Tyler, do we have much longer to drive? Emma's already getting hungry, and I could use a snack too." "Not long now. Soon there'll be an exit from the highway. We need to get onto another road, and from there it's just a stone's throw to the lake. About 30 more minutes, so hang in there, okay?" "All right, sounds good. What kind of road is it?" "An abandoned highway. It used to be the main one. Everyone used to drive on it until they built the new interstate." "Oh, I didn't know that. All these years driving here, I always thought Interstate 5 was the only way." "Well, that's just because your folks didn't have a car back then. I was often driven on it before. There used to be a summer camp by that lake. People would book cabins even a week in advance. Demand was crazy. But when they closed the road, everything went downhill. Guests stopped coming, and the owners abandoned the business. Now everything's empty there, but the place hasn't become any less beautiful because of it. You sure know how to build intrigue, buddy. All right, end of communication. I'm getting tired of talking. Tyler wasn't lying. In about 15 minutes, we really did exit the highway and headed across a field on a dirt road. There wasn't a soul around, which gave the impression that no one had driven here for a long time, although the road was quite fresh and clearly carefully laid out by someone. As soon as we crossed the field, we immediately went deep into the forest, where we soon came across a barrier chain. This was the only obstacle on the way to the nameless highway. We easily overcame it and soon found ourselves on the abandoned interstate. I must admit, it looked quite frightening. Weeds were breaking through cracks in the asphalt, and the shoulder was barely visible because of bushes and trees hanging over the road. I also occasionally noticed rusty signs, but even they paled in comparison to the old billboard we soon came across. It still had an advertisement for that very summer camp Paradise Lake with photographs from 20 years ago. The sign was pretty weathered by time, but the text and images on it were visible quite well. After passing the billboard, we turned right after 100 meters and again left the highway for a dirt road. All that remained was to overcome the section passing through the forest, and the lake would be at our disposal. But then something happened. The thing is, when we were planning the trip, Tyler assured everyone that this place had long been abandoned. He said there was no administration or security guards. But as soon as we approached the camp, a gray-haired and bearded old man came out to meet us, who introduced himself as a guard. He sat in a makeshift booth and guarded the entrance so that no one would accidentally slip through to the reservoir without his knowledge. "Good afternoon, and who might you be?" Tyler said, rolling down the passenger side window without turning off the engine. He stopped the car near the gate. I also followed his example and stopped right behind him. "I'm Frank, the guard here, and you must be our new visitors." The old man came almost close to my friend's car and leaned slightly toward the window. "Wait, they reopened the summer camp here. Everything's been standing abandoned for many years. Well, you know, times change. Now there's a new owner here. He hired employees. We're slowly setting everything up like before." "Well, that's right. Why should such a beautiful place go to waste? What's the entrance fee?" $25 per person, and you can choose any free cabin. "Let me pay for all 4 of us right away then. We'll stay with you until evening." "No problem. Drive through. The administrator will meet you, and you can settle up with her." After saying this, the elderly man approached the gate and opened the entrance for us, after which we finally entered the camp grounds. The place really impressed with its beauty. The lake was quite large and deep, surrounded on 3 sides by dense forest, and closer to us was a beach near which stood summer cabins just like in a pioneer camp. Everything was so well maintained and neat that I would never have called this territory abandoned, at least not now. Tyler was also in light shock. The last time he came here about 3 years ago, the houses were in a completely different condition, and people were rarely encountered here. Mainly, they were adventurers like us, who were looking for interesting places to relax. The question of why the new owners needed such an unprofitable business remained open for me personally, at least for now. As soon as we entered the camp and parked our cars in the clearing, an adult woman named Margaret approached us, who introduced herself as the administrator. She informed us about the visiting rules, after which she took payment for admission and provided keys to the farthest cabin. Besides our group and those 2 employees we met, there were at least 7 more people on the camp grounds. Mostly these were rural workers of different ages. Each of them was busy with their own business. Someone was chopping wood and stacking it near the bathhouse, and someone was engaged in minor repairs. However, in addition to the working staff, there were surprisingly ordinary guests here too. A married couple, a man and woman about 40 years old. Their cabin was next to ours, and they were already relaxing on the beach, clearly having arrived here long before us. Thanks to these folks, we stopped feeling like lonely tourists who had entered someone else's territory. New arrivals, great people, welcome to Paradise Lake, make yourselves at home, said the man sitting on a beach chair under an umbrella with a bottle of cold kvass and a bag of chips. His wife was swimming in the water and was also waving at us, as if we had been acquainted for many years. Good afternoon, how's the water? Honestly, I was surprised by such a powerful stream of friendliness. Even the tired workers, seeing us, somehow immediately livened up, despite the fact that it was scorching outside and working was no joke. Warmer than the ocean. The water may be standing, but it's clean. There are springs beating at the bottom. In general, swimming is a pleasure. While the girls were unpacking things and setting the table, Tyler and I stood on the shore and chatted with these nice people. To put it briefly, they learned about this camp by accident. They were driving along the main highway and saw an advertisement that the new owners had placed. Most likely, this is exactly how they lured their guests, since there was almost no traffic in this place. Well, we were more of an exception, and it seemed like everything was perfect. Kind people, warm atmosphere, good summer weather. But very soon our vacation was overshadowed by one incident. Standing on the shore, at some point I turned to the girls to check on them, and suddenly saw such a picture. The guy who was chopping wood out of nowhere stuck his axe into a log and moved toward our ladies, who at that time were cutting vegetables on the veranda. Approaching the porch, he first stared at Jessica, and then slowly shifted his gaze to Emma, while smiling somehow stupidly. The girls stood scared in place and did not take their eyes off the stranger, not understanding what he wanted from them. This charming bald man with yellow teeth apparently didn't know anything about tact, so I had to set him straight a little. "Hey buddy, you got something confused. Hey, I'm talking to you." My shout attracted the attention of almost everyone around. Both Tyler and that married couple, and even some of the workers looked in my direction. Only that character to whom it was originally addressed paid no attention to me. Either he was playing dumb, or was too engrossed in the beauty of our companions. Either way, not noticing any reaction, I immediately moved in his direction, mentally preparing myself for a fight. And then something curious happened. As soon as I approached this big guy and grabbed him by the shoulder, a woman administrator immediately jumped out of the central cabin and barked at her employee. It looked like a teacher in kindergarten making a remark to a bully who was bothering other children, as if this was not an adult person, but a child with mental disabilities. But what impressed me more was how the big guy reacted to my attack. I used enough force to turn the scoundrel to face me, but he stood in place like a rock and didn't even budge. Only after moments did he deign to turn around, but already of his own free will, after which he stared at me with an insane look. Now, instead of that stupid smile, the psychopath's face showed a grimace that instantly cooled my head. I was no longer sure that I had enough strength to defeat this savage alone. So there was only one thing left. Stand still and look him in the eyes with the hope that everything would work out by itself. And so it happened. The administrator watching us all this time shouted the name of the thug, and he looked at her with displeasure. And then, as if nothing had happened, turned around and went back to chopping wood. You might have thought that after this incident we packed our things and went home. But no, this did not happen because of Tyler, who persuaded us to stay. I tried to change his mind, but in the end I gave up, and there were reasons for that. First, we drove here too long to just pick up and leave. In that case, we would have screwed up not only the weekend, but also the whole mood for the week ahead. And secondly, Manager Margaret apologized for the boorish behavior of her worker and offered us free vacation by returning the money for renting the cabin. This bonus finally overshadowed the unpleasant incident, and we stayed at Paradise Lake to relax and enjoy nature. All the time while our group hung out on the beach, I never again saw that bald giant who had annoyed our girls. Probably they hid him somewhere so he wouldn't scare away all the guests. But here's the dilemma. I couldn't understand the nature of the behavior of this seemingly adult man. His impudent grin and unhealthy attraction to other people, which is usually found only in psychopaths with sick fantasies, wouldn't leave my head. But since this topic was already closed, and I didn't want to spoil anyone's mood, I decided to leave everything as it was and focus on relaxation. The whole rest of the day, until evening, we swam and sunbathed, almost never leaving the beach, and only occasionally came to the veranda to take a break from the sun and have a snack. No more strange things happened before our departure, except once in the forest when I wanted to step away for natural needs. There was one wooden toilet at the camp outdoors. It was located about 50 meters from the cabins, and you had to walk along a path leading through the bushes. I didn't go into the booth itself. I was disgusted. There was such a stench as if someone had fallen into a pit and died. So I had to go a little deeper into the forest. And right there, moving along a beaten path, at some point, I stumbled upon a wallet lying in the grass with a full arsenal of cards, a small amount of cash, and a driver's license in the name of one Anthony Davis. I can't say that this find impressed me much. Who knows under what circumstances this item was lost. But what happened next really got me worried. After some time, someone's footsteps were heard from the direction of our camp. Someone was following right behind me, but these were not my friends, since their distant voices were still coming from the beach, which worried me doubly. Soon a figure of a bald giant appeared from the bushes, who was walking to the toilet, periodically looking back. He saw me, saw that I was going in this direction, and therefore it was not difficult to determine his intention. "Hey, do you want to get into trouble again? What do you need?" Contrary to common sense, I did not hide in the bushes, but went out to meet my opponent. The man clearly did not expect such impudence. At first, he just stood in place and looked at me, but then suddenly livened up and decided to approach. What happened next is a classic example of misunderstanding between people. I sincerely believed that this person wanted to harm me and for this reason behaved quite aggressively. But everything turned out to be completely different. Yes, the man looked like a complete psycho, had a frightening physical form, and could easily cripple me, but he didn't need it. He wanted to warn us about something, and I understood this immediately after the big guy stopped a few meters from me and tried to say something. Leave what? I don't understand you. Can you speak? Leave here, leave here. After the man squeezed out a set of unclear sounds from himself and saw that I didn't understand him, he opened his mouth and showed me a cut-off tongue, which caused him speech problems. From the eyes of this good guy, it became clear that he didn't wish anyone harm, but on the contrary wanted to warn about something. But about what exactly? Danny, what are you bothering people for? Go work. How are we going to heat the bathhouse in the evening? Suddenly, an old woman's voice was heard behind me. It was Margaret. She saw how her ward was following me and decided to control the situation. Apparently, Danny was not the most obedient member of their team. Please forgive me, for God's sake. This is my son, my eldest. He's mentally disabled, born that way, unfortunately. Now I have to watch him so he doesn't cause any trouble. That's okay, Margaret. I understand everything. We made peace with him and we're not feuding now. Danny ignored my address and, turning around, looked guiltily at his mother. The woman ordered him with a stern look to return to the camp and was also about to leave when I suddenly decided to ask her a question. Excuse me, what's wrong with his tongue? It seemed to me that it was cut off. How did this happen? Hearing this, the old woman stopped and froze with her back to me, and then, still not turning around, said, "He bit it off himself as a child. Sorry, but I wouldn't want to discuss this. All the best." Our strange dialogue ended there, after which we went in different directions, trying not to catch each other's eye anymore. During the above-described events, I completely forgot about the found wallet, and when I remembered it, we were already packing things and getting ready to go home. Tyler suggested stopping by the police station and giving the find to law enforcement. Everyone supported his idea. Not that someone didn't trust the local contingent. It was just safer that way. But alas, we couldn't leave this place. When I got in the car with Emma and turned the key in the ignition, the engine didn't start, and this was very suspicious, since my car had been diagnosed just a couple of months ago, and the mechanics found no damage. But with Tyler's car, on the contrary, everything was fine. He and Jessica moved forward, but then saw that I had stalled and also stopped. "Well, what's up? Are we going or what?" My friend opened the driver's door and looked at me. Seeing my confused look, he turned off the engine and got out of the car. "Won't start. Damn, completely dead. It doesn't even make any sounds. Look." I turned the ignition key again, demonstrating to Tyler the detected defect. "Maybe the battery's acting up." "No, it shouldn't be. I just picked it up from service recently. They said it was like new." "Okay, wait a minute. Let me think of something now." Tyler headed toward the gate to Frank, who had been sitting in the guard booth almost all day and hadn't gone anywhere. They talked for a long time about something. My friend even wrote something down on his phone, and then he gratefully nodded to the guard and moved back to me. "So here's the deal. There's no cell service here. Can't call a tow truck unless we get to the nearest village and call from there. It's somewhere 40 kilometers north of the camp. I can manage it in about an hour." "Stop, wait. You're going to drive to the village. Am I supposed to stay here alone? Do you have other options? Think about it yourself. We don't have cables, no service stations around either. Only a tow truck remains. I'll fly to the village in no time. Jessica will stay here with you guys. Hang out for another hour and a half. We'll definitely sort everything out before dark. Looking ahead, I'll say right away, no, we didn't sort it out. Tyler left the camp territory around 6 o'clock in the evening. He was supposed to return in an hour, but neither by 7, nor by 8, nor even by 9 did he come back. I tried to call him on the radio, but nothing worked. There was deciduous forest all around, communication range about 4 miles. If my friend had gotten stuck somewhere nearby, I would have heard him. And if he was able to get to the highway and still hadn't returned, all sorts of bad thoughts started creeping into my head. Did he really get into an accident? And I can't even check, the car won't start. There's no connection. The girls also started to worry, especially Jessica. She loved Tyler more than life and couldn't find peace knowing that he was now somewhere out there in the night, completely alone. Maybe he encountered the same problem as me. Very soon, alarming hunger set in, as food supplies ran out around 5 o'clock. And now it was getting dark outside, and we should have been home long ago. Honestly, I was surprised by how everyone present reacted to our calls for help. The married couple, for example, had neither cables nor, as they said, extra gasoline for a trip to the village. Remember, only 40 kilometers. Margaret was much more courteous. She offered us to stay at the camp for the night, said she would feed and give us something to drink. But when I started asking about her old pickup truck standing in the clearing, the woman didn't even want to talk about this topic. Already then, I had the feeling that everything happening around was part of some insidious plan. But who planned all this, and most importantly, why, was still unclear. By the time it was completely dark outside, the camp staff had lit a fire, put up a large spit on which they skewered marinated pieces of meat, and began cooking it over the fire. The 3 of us were also invited to the picnic to drink tea and have dinner. We couldn't refuse. The air was filled with the smell of roasted meat that drove us crazy and forced us to be distracted from all problems. Hunger is such a thing. It obscures the mind of any creature and doesn't allow you to concentrate on other needs, except the main physiological one. Almost everyone gathered around the fire. Guard Old Man Frank, manager Margaret of the entire establishment, 4 men in work clothes who were mostly silent and unquestioningly obeyed Margaret, and that married couple. Only Danny was absent, the mentally disabled big guy who was naive and simple-hearted like a child. Apparently today, he had really distinguished himself and was now being punished by his mother for the rest of the day. Well, guys, maybe you'll tell us how you found our little place. Where did you come from? Rarely does anyone come here. We can count our guests on our fingers. Frank decided to brighten up the wait for delicious dinner, while one of the younger workers watched the spit, turning it from time to time and making sure the meat didn't burn anywhere. Tyler lured us here. This is his parents' favorite place. He says he spent almost his whole childhood here. Tyler, that's the boy who came up to me earlier. Yeah, damn, where did he disappear to? He's not even answering the radio. Something definitely happened to him. Don't worry so much, Marcus. Everything will be fine. It's summer now. Even if he broke down somewhere, he won't freeze. There's not much wild game here. Your buddy will calmly spend the night in the car, and tomorrow morning we'll find him. I promise." Michael joined the conversation, the same one who had little gasoline, no cable, and who was also afraid that they would find alcohol in his blood after drinking kvass. I didn't answer him anything, just nodded briefly and continued to watch the fat from the already well-browned meat drip into the fire. "Well, all right, stop pestering them. Can't you see they're not in the mood for you right now? They already have a bunch of problems piled up. Here, grandchildren, drink some tea. I specially brewed mint tea. They say it calms the nerves." Margaret brought us wooden mugs with hot liquid. Fragrant herbs floated inside, and the tea itself was quite tasty, even without sugar. I drained a quarter of the glass in one gulp. "Here, the barbecue is ready. Come on, everyone, while it's not cold." There was quite a lot of meat. It was enough for our entire group, and there was even some left over. The old man cut the pieces so that they looked like decent-sized steaks, and we started devouring them with such appetite that we didn't even notice how closely all the gathered people were watching us. The taste of the meat was somehow unusual, not like regular barbecue. Not pork, little fat, juicy, literally melted in the mouth. Maybe lamb. Although no, we had recently ordered it in a cafe, the taste was completely different. I continued to chew and swallow piece after piece, while gratefully smiling at the people sitting opposite. They watched with curiosity for some more time how we ate, and then also started their meal. "Well, guys, guess in 3 tries what kind of animal this is. I caught it myself. I love hunting. It's my hobby." The old man's eyes sparkled with dark merriment. The expression on his face in the firelight seemed especially sinister. "Wow, you caught it yourself. A wild boar, maybe." Emma put forward her assumption, but the old man just smiled slyly and shook his head negatively. "No, any more guesses?" "Well, there's a lot of meat here. Maybe it's some kind of deer," Jessica said, chewing contentedly over her plate. "Good try, but also no. One more left. Maybe the young man will try his luck." "I don't even know. If it's not deer and not wild boar, who else can live in this forest?" And then I was seized with trembling. I cast a fleeting glance at the spit on which the second batch of barbecue was finishing, and saw something that almost turned me inside out. On one of the pieces of flesh, a slightly baked fragment of a drawing was visible, a black skull with 2 crossed thigh bones. This was Tyler's tattoo. He had it tattooed on his left leg, and we chose the sketch together right in the salon with the master. You can't even imagine what was going on inside me at that moment, when I finally realized everything that was happening around. My gaze immediately began to dart anxiously around the group of cannibals gathered around the fire, each of whom was greedily chewing meat, so that saliva was flying in all directions. Only Margaret and the old man maintained deathly calm, not taking their eyes off me. "Oh, I see you figured it all out. Well, how do you like your buddy? Not too raw?" As soon as he said this, everyone around, even that married couple who pretended to be guests, laughed in unison, after which the old witch also decided to speak up. "That's enough fooling around. Stop mocking the food. Let them eat normally for the last time. Look how skinny they are." Hearing this, I wanted to get up and kick these arrogant freaks in the face who took advantage of our naivety and difficult situation. But alas, my body didn't obey me. My legs and arms were like cotton, and my vision blurred as if the 3 of us had been heavily drugged. Emma and Jessica were already lying on the ground. Next to them lay pieces of half-eaten meat and empty mugs with unknown herbs. I also tried to resist for some time, but soon I also couldn't stand it and plunged into darkness. I opened my eyes already in some remote clearing in the middle of the forest. It was still deep night outside. The moon was shining so brightly as if it were some kind of spotlight. Thanks to it, you could see every blade of grass on the ground. But these clowns, for some reason, decided to place torches everywhere. Probably they wanted to impress us, and they succeeded. I came to from the girls screaming my name and calling for help. They were very frightened, and this is not surprising, because we were kidnapped by a gang of some villagers who also liked to eat human flesh. Only God knew what was going on in their minds, although judging by what I saw a little later, they clearly didn't believe in him. The three of us were tightly tied to wooden posts dug into the ground. I was in the middle, Emma to my left, Jessica to my right. The gang of kidnappers in full force stood in a semicircle about 15 feet from us. They were all whispering something to themselves, and were dressed in dark cloaks with hoods under which it was difficult to see anything. The situation around resembled some kind of satanic ritual where we acted as victims. On the grass, red liquid was used to draw some circles and incomprehensible symbols, and right in the center stood a large old stump with an axe stuck in it. This explained why we were still alive. They weren't planning to lie somewhere in the refrigerator, divided into several parts. As soon as the cannibals saw that we had regained consciousness, one of them, the one standing on the right, stepped forward a little and removed his hood. It was that same old woman who had given us tea. Most likely, she was the leader of the sectarians, although I never managed to fully understand their hierarchy. My children, let us thank the Father for sending us this glorious food. Let us show that his gifts are valuable to us. Choose who we will send to him first. After the old hag said this, all the Satanists almost simultaneously pointed their finger at me, after which the healthiest of them moved in my direction. I recognized him almost immediately. It was Danny, the man suffering from mental disability. He played the role of executioner, and in dark robes with a machete in his hands, looked especially intimidating. But as it often happens, a person's appearance turned out to be deceptive. Approaching me, the big guy took off his hood and looked at me. His eyes showed sorrow and longing. He was sincerely sorry for me and probably many others before us. Judging by the fact that he had his tongue cut off, I can even guess by whom exactly. Soon the executioner untied the rope that bound my hands, then grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and dragged me to that very stump. I had no strength to resist this big guy. My arms and legs still felt weak after that poison we drank sitting by the fire. Having brought me to the place of execution, the man put my head on a piece of cut tree, having previously replaced his weapon with an axe. At that moment, I was no longer paying attention to the crying girls who were begging to spare us, nor to the hooting of an owl coming from somewhere in the forest. I wanted to end all this crap called life as soon as possible. Come on, my son, fulfill the will of our Father. Finish off the bastard so that we can sprinkle this sacred field with his blood. And then the situation took an unexpected turn. The old woman didn't manage to say what she wanted, because at this very moment, instead of executing me, the big guy turned around and took off the old witch's head, so to speak, wrote her a ticket to her beloved father, whom she so admired. Then absolutely everyone went nuts. Me, Emma, Jessica, and even those ghouls who until now had been standing in a semicircle and silently staring at what was happening. It seemed that time around had stopped, and only the old man's scream could bring everyone back to reality. "You bastard, get him." At that moment, fate gave me a chance that simply could not be missed. I quickly assessed the situation and realized that fighting against 7 sectarians armed with machetes, even with such a trump card at hand as Danny, was suicide. And therefore I made the only right decision to save our lives. The girls were still chained to the posts, and as soon as the pack of cannibals rushed at our savior, I ran to free them. Luckily, Danny's machete was lying nearby, with which I could easily cut the ropes, after which the 3 of us rushed toward the forest. Already running up to the thicket, I turned around for a second to check if anyone was chasing us and saw something that made my heart involuntarily clench. The Satanists were hacking the man with a crowd, though not as numerous as before. Before dying, the hero managed to take at least 3 non-humans with him to the next world. For this, eternal honor and gratitude to him. Our rescue plan was as follows. I planned to get lost among the trees and then try to get to the highway and call someone for help. But everything turned out to be not so simple. The thing is, we had no landmarks. In addition, the tree crowns almost completely blocked the moonlight, which is why we moved practically by touch, holding each other's hands so as not to get lost in the darkness. We never managed to get to the saving highway. As it later turned out, it was in a completely different direction. But it didn't matter. We continued to stubbornly move forward, and after some time, we came across a camp of tourists who, to our great luck, decided to go hiking that day. The 3 of us managed to survive, but at what cost? Tyler was killed and eaten, and we also participated in the latter, although no one suspected that it was human flesh. His car was found with punctured tires right at the entrance to Paradise Lake. My friend didn't even manage to reach the abandoned highway before they ambushed him and brutally killed him, then butchered him like livestock and served him for dinner. From 7 to 9 o'clock, I tried to contact an already dead person on the radio, not even realizing how close he was to me. As for the camp, it was almost completely destroyed by fire. Even that unfortunate wooden toilet was burned down, under which they later found half-rotten human remains. The surviving cannibals tried to cover their tracks, and unfortunately, they succeeded. Apparently, they went into the forests, since no one has ever seen them since then. By the way, about the wallet, Anthony Davis, the same man whose license I found, was listed among the missing persons. He left for fishing on Saturday morning and never returned home. He was far from the only one who got lost in these places, but all of them, for obvious reasons, still remain unfound. The ritual clearing was only a few hundred meters from the camp. It was also set on fire, along with the bodies that remained lying charred on the ground next to the bloodied stump. I'm still tormented by the question of what kind of secret society this was and how we could have run into them. But one thing I understood for sure: deep forests harbor many dangers and secrets, and any seemingly harmless trip can turn into serious problems. Just be careful and take care of yourself. Detective Thomas Riley stood motionless before the security monitor, his weathered face bathed in its pale light. 28 years on the force hadn't prepared him for what the surveillance footage revealed. The The masked intruder had been methodical, threatening the land registry clerk, securing the documents, placing the explosive device. Yet he'd overlooked something crucial. "Play it again," Riley commanded, his voice barely audible. His partner rewound the tape. There, at exactly 6:14 p.m., a small figure emerged from behind a filing cabinet after the perpetrator had left. A child, a witness. "In all my years wearing this badge, I've never seen bravery like this," Riley muttered, watching the little girl move with determination, despite obvious terror. What truly happened that frigid November evening in Riverside would shake their peaceful community to its core? The killer believed no one had witnessed his crime, but he never thought to look behind the tall filing cabinet where 9-year-old Emma Morgan saw everything, including the distinctive scorpion tattoo that would seal his fate. Riverside, Pennsylvania wore its industrial heritage like weathered denim, particularly in the downtown district where the old city hall stood. The 4-story brick building with its imposing clock tower and arched windows had overseen a century of the town's secrets before housing the regional land registry office 12 years ago. On this particular November evening, as darkness fell early and the first hints of a bitter cold front swept through, the building stood nearly deserted save for 2 souls on the 3rd floor, and a third who would soon arrive with murder on his mind. Lisa Morgan, a slender woman of 36 with prematurely gray-streaked auburn hair, sat hunched over her desk, reviewing property deeds long after her colleagues had departed. The warm glow of her desk lamp created a small sanctuary of light in the vast room. As the widow of former economic crimes inspector David Morgan, Lisa had rebuilt her life as a senior land registry specialist, a position that provided stability for her and 9-year-old Emma after David's murder during a courthouse ambush 3 years prior. The irony of now working in a government building wasn't lost on Lisa, but the job paid well and offered the flexible hours a single mother desperately needed. In the corner of Lisa's office, surrounded by colored pencils and sketch paper, sat Emma Morgan. With her father's thoughtful green eyes and her mother's delicate features, Emma was a quiet child who absorbed everything around her. Her small heart medication dispenser rested beside her artwork, a constant companion since stress-induced cardiac episodes had developed after witnessing her father's death. Though shy around strangers, Emma possessed an inner strength that occasionally surprised even her mother. 4 miles away, Victor Steele methodically checked his equipment bag one final time. The scorpion tattoo that crawled from his collarbone up his left neck seemed to shift in the dim light of his motel room. At 45, Steele had spent more years as a professional killer than a free man. But this contract promised enough money to vanish permanently. What made this particular job different wasn't just the target, specific land documents, rather than simple elimination, but the anonymous employer who had remained faceless even to him. Meanwhile, Detective Thomas Riley, a 52-year-old veteran with steel-gray hair and permanently tired eyes, finished his coffee at the station, unaware that the approaching cold front would bring more than frost to Riverside. As David Morgan's former partner and Emma's godfather, Riley had made a promise at his friend's grave, a promise about to be tested in ways he couldn't imagine. The clock on Lisa's desk ticked past 6:15 p.m. as she rubbed her strained eyes. Outside, The temperature was dropping rapidly, coating Riverside in a deceptive blanket of crystalline beauty. "Just 10 more minutes, sweetheart. Then we'll get that hot apple cider I promised," Lisa called to Emma, who nodded without looking up from her drawing, a family portrait that included her father, rendered in careful crayon strokes. Lisa returned her attention to the Meridian Development file, a complicated property case that had occupied her for weeks. Vincent Hunter, Riverside's wealthiest businessman, had built an empire through real estate acquisitions and development projects. But something about his recent filings troubled her. Discrepancies she couldn't quite identify. She made another note in the margin, unaware that these very documents would soon put her life at risk. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "remember how Dad used to make apple cider with those little cinnamon sticks shaped like stars?" Lisa smiled, the memory both sweet and painful. "I do. We still have some at home. Your father always said that stars should be tasted, not just wished upon." Emma finished coloring, a small smile playing across her lips. Their morning had begun like any other Wednesday. Emma's strawberry-scented shampoo filling the bathroom, as Lisa helped detangle her daughter's stubborn curls. Toast burning slightly as they rushed through breakfast. The familiar struggle to find Emma's left mitten before the school bus arrived. These mundane moments had become sacred to Lisa, reminders that life continued despite devastating loss. Mrs. Morgan, the office intercom buzzed unexpectedly. "Security desk here. You have a document delivery that requires your signature." Lisa frowned. She wasn't expecting any deliveries, and documents typically went through the main reception. "They're still here this late." Before she could respond, the office door swung open with such force that it slammed against the wall. Emma jumped at the sound, her pencil creating a jagged line across her drawing. Victor Steele stood in the doorway, his tall frame blocking any escape. He wore a maintenance uniform that might have fooled cameras, but his eyes, cold and calculating, revealed his true purpose. The scorpion tattoo on his neck seemed to pulse as he smiled, revealing a gold-capped tooth. "Lisa Morgan," he said, his voice oddly formal as he closed the door behind him. "Don't move." He pulled a pistol from beneath his jacket. Lisa instinctively moved toward Emma, but Steele raised the weapon higher. "I said don't move." With a mother's instinct, Lisa subtly motioned for Emma to get down. The girl slipped silently behind the large oak filing cabinet, her small body hidden by shadows and decorative paneling. Lisa prayed Steele hadn't noticed her daughter. "What do you want?" Lisa asked, working to keep her voice steady, to keep his attention away from Emma's corner. "You have something I need," Steele replied, approaching Lisa's desk. "The Meridian files, all of them." Lisa's mind raced. Why would someone pull a gun over property documents? "They're confidential, legal property records. I can't just—" "Don't play stupid," Steele cut her off. "The external drive too. I know Morgan made copies." Lisa's breath caught. He hadn't said Mrs. Morgan or even Lisa. He'd said Morgan as if he knew about David, as if this was connected to her husband. Under the filing cabinet, Emma pulled her knees tight against her chest, fighting to control her breathing the way her cardiologist had taught her. The scene unfolding stirred terrifying memories. Another man with a gun, her father pushing her behind him, the deafening sounds that followed. Her small fingers clutched her heart medication, but she didn't dare use it now, when even the slightest sound might reveal her presence. I don't know what you're talking about, Lisa said, but her voice wavered. Steele moved with unexpected speed, grabbing Lisa by the throat and pushing her against the filing cabinet. Your husband was digging into Hunter's development deals before he got himself killed. Those files weren't just about property records, were they? He found something, and you've continued his work. Where is the evidence? Lisa struggled against his grip, genuine confusion mixing with fear. David had never mentioned Hunter to her. Whatever her husband had discovered, he'd kept it from her, likely to protect her. The safe, she gasped, pointing to the office safe where confidential documents were stored. Combination 478921. Steele released her, shoving her toward the safe. Open it, slowly. As Lisa fumbled with the combination dial, her mind worked frantically. David had been investigating something before his death, something important enough that someone was still searching for evidence 3 years later. Her hands trembled as the safe door swung open. Take out the Meridian folders only, Steele instructed, placing them on the desk. Lisa followed his instructions, removing 2 thick folders. This is everything we have. Steele leafed through the documents with one hand, keeping the gun trained on Lisa with the other. His expression darkened. Where's the external drive? There is no drive, Lisa insisted. These are just routine property audits. The blow came without warning, the back of Steele's hand connecting with Lisa's cheek, sending her sprawling to the floor. Emma bit her lip to keep from crying out, tasting blood as she watched through the narrow gap beneath the cabinet panel. Last chance, Steele growled, aiming the gun at Lisa's head. Bottom drawer, Lisa whispered, her hand touching her bleeding lip. Hidden compartment at the back. Steele kept the gun aimed as he pulled open the drawer with his free hand, feeling along the back until something clicked. He extracted a small, silver external hard drive. Hands behind your back, he ordered, pulling zip ties from his pocket. Once Lisa was secured, Steele placed the files and drive in his bag. Then he removed something else, a small device with wires and a digital display. Insurance policy, he said, setting the homemade bomb on the desk. The timer read 25 minutes. By the time this counts down, I'll be long gone, and all evidence connecting me to Hunter will be destroyed, including you. He headed for the door, then paused, looking around the office suspiciously. Is there anyone else in the building? No, Lisa answered too quickly. Everyone left hours ago. Steele's eyes narrowed, scanning the room one last time before apparently deciding Lisa was telling the truth. Your husband should have minded his own business, he said as he left, the office door closing behind him with finality. The timer began its countdown. Red numbers reflected in Lisa's terrified eyes. 24:59, 24:58, 24:57. The moment Steele's footsteps faded down the hallway, Emma's chest tightened like a vice. The familiar pressure started deep in her chest, her body betraying her in the worst possible moment. She fumbled for her medication with trembling hands, trying desperately to stay silent even as her heart raced dangerously. Emma, Lisa whispered urgently, unable to see her daughter from her position on the floor. Emma, are you okay? The child couldn't respond. Her vision blurred as she took a small pill from her dispenser, the medication bitter on her tongue. The attack had been triggered not just by fear, but by a terrible recognition. Though she'd been only 6 when her father died, Emma had perfect recall of that day the courthouse parking garage. The armed man, her father pushing her behind a concrete pillar before the shots rang out. She couldn't remember the shooter's face clearly, but she'd never forget the distinctive scorpion tattoo crawling up his neck. The same scorpion that had just left the room. Memories flooded back as Emma took another pill. Her father kneeling down that morning, straightening her coat collar. "You're my brave girl, Emma Bean," he'd said with a wink. It was the last thing he ever told her. Down the hall, Steele paused at a water fountain, his heightened senses alert to a sound, something like a small gasp or wheeze. He stood motionless, listening. After 15 years of professional killing, his instincts were finely tuned. Something wasn't right. He took 3 silent steps back toward the office, then stopped as the building's ancient heating system clanked to life, drowning out any subtler sounds. Paranoid, he muttered to himself, continuing toward the exit. He had what he came for, and the approaching cold front would cover his tracks. Besides, even if someone had seen him, they wouldn't live to identify him once the bomb detonated. Inside the office, the timer continued its merciless countdown. 22:13, 22:12. Emma's breathing slowly stabilized, but terror kept her frozen behind the filing cabinet. Run for safety or save her mother. The choice seemed impossible for a 9-year-old, yet it was hers alone to make. "Emma," Lisa called softly. "If you can hear me, I need you to listen carefully. You need to get out of the building right now. Don't worry about me, just run." The desperation in her mother's voice made Emma's decision for her. She crawled from her hiding place, eyes immediately fixing on the bomb's countdown. 21:47 and ticking downward. "Oh, thank God," Lisa gasped, relief washing over her face before hardening into determination. "Emma, you need to leave now. Get help." But Emma stood transfixed, staring at her mother's bound hands, the bruise forming on her cheek, the bomb counting down their remaining time together. "It was him," she whispered, her voice small but certain. "What? Emma, please. The man who hurt Daddy. It was him. Same scorpion." Lisa's eyes widened with horrified understanding. The connection she couldn't make suddenly became clear. Steele wasn't just after property documents. He was eliminating loose ends from David's murder. But why now, after 3 years? "The files," Lisa murmured, pieces falling into place. David must have found something in Hunter's property deals, something worth killing for. Outside, the temperature continued dropping, wind howling against the old building's windows. The approaching cold front that had been forecast to hit around 8 p.m. was arriving hours earlier than predicted, already reducing visibility and making the isolated registry office even more remote. Emma moved toward her mother, small fingers reaching for the zip ties. "No," Lisa said firmly. "Emma, you need to run. Get out before the bomb." "I'm not leaving you," Emma interrupted with a stubbornness that mirrored her father's. She tugged at the plastic restraints, but they were pulled tight against Lisa's wrists. "You need scissors," Lisa said, resignation mixing with maternal fear. "In the supply drawer, hurry." As Emma retrieved the scissors, she suddenly doubled over, another cardiac episode threatening. The stress, the dust from the old building, the fear, it was all too much for her young heart. "Breathe, baby," Lisa coached, helpless to comfort her daughter physically. "Remember what Dr. Patterson taught you. In through your nose, out through your mouth." The timer continued its countdown. 21:43, 21:42. In a shocking moment of clarity, Emma realized something that made her blood run cold. The bomb's timer seemed synchronized with the approaching weather front. The forecast had called for the cold front to peak around 8 p.m., virtually the same time the bomb was set to detonate. It wasn't coincidence, it was calculation. The explosion would be attributed to a gas leak or electrical failure caused by the severe weather. By the time emergency services could reach the building through the storm, evidence would be destroyed and steel would be long gone. With trembling hands, Emma managed to cut through one zip tie before another episode overtook her. "This is exactly how your father died," Lisa said suddenly, her voice breaking. "Protecting others. He was investigating financial crimes. The courthouse shooting wasn't random, it was targeted. The official story was a disgruntled defendant, but David knew something else. Something about Hunter." Emma worked on the second zip tie, processing her mother's words. "Is that why you became a land person? To find what Daddy was looking for?" Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what he'd found, only that it was important. I transferred to this department hoping to continue his work. I never imagined it would put you in danger." The final zip tie fell away, and Lisa immediately embraced her daughter, then pulled back to examine the bomb. The digital timer now read 2017. "We need to get out," Lisa said, moving toward the door. The handle wouldn't budge. She turned it frantically, but nothing happened. "He locked it from the outside," Lisa realized with dawning horror. She ran to the window, but they were on the third floor, far too high for a safe jump, especially with Emma's condition. The cold front had intensified, frost now forming on the windows so heavily that the street lights below were barely visible. Lisa grabbed the office phone dead. Cell service showed no bars, likely blocked by the weather or deliberately jammed by steel. They were trapped with a bomb counting down and a bitter cold front raging outside. At that moment, the building's old electrical system flickered, lights dimming momentarily before stabilizing. But in that brief power fluctuation, something unexpected happened. The bomb's timer jumped from 21:43 to 14 minutes. "The timer," Emma gasped. "It's going faster." Lisa stared in horror at the accelerated countdown. The malfunction had just cost them precious minutes. Whatever steel had built, it wasn't stable. They now had less than 14 minutes to escape a locked room, disarm a bomb, or somehow signal for help through a severe weather front. "Mom," Emma whispered, her father's determined green eyes looking up from her pale face. "I know what we have to do." Across town, Detective Thomas Riley stared out the precinct window at the worsening weather, a cold cup of coffee forgotten on his desk. At 52, with retirement papers already filed, he should have been counting down his final days on the force. Instead, he found himself obsessing over the same case that had haunted him for 3 years. The courthouse shooting that took David Morgan's life. "You still here, Riley?" Captain Rodriguez asked, coat already on. "Weather's getting nasty. You should head home while you can." Riley nodded absently, eyes never leaving the frost-covered glass. "Something doesn't feel right, Cap." "That's just your bad knee predicting the weather," Rodriguez replied with a forced chuckle. "Seriously, go home. Whatever cold case you're brooding over will still be there tomorrow." But Riley couldn't shake the unease that had plagued him all day. He picked up the framed photo on his desk, himself, and David at the police academy graduation, young and invincible. David had been his best friend, partner, and later, when David moved to economic crimes, his most trusted ally in navigating complex financial investigations. "What were you working on, Dave?" Riley murmured to the photograph. 3 years of discreet investigation had yielded little. The official report concluded that David was killed by a random courthouse shooter who was himself killed by security. Case closed, but Riley knew his friend. David had been nervous in the weeks before his death, staying late at the office, bringing files home, making cryptic comments about following the money. Riley had promised Lisa he would find the truth, a promise that felt increasingly hollow as time passed. He set down the photograph with a sigh and reached for his coat. Perhaps Rodriguez was right. The answers would wait another day. As he gathered his things, the precinct phone rang. Riley hesitated, then picked up. Detective Riley. There was a pause, then a voice, electronically disguised. 3rd floor, East Wing, Riverside Municipal Land Registry. Lisa Morgan, 12 minutes. "Who is this?" Riley demanded, but the line went dead. His blood ran cold. Lisa and Emma in danger. He grabbed his service weapon and car keys, shouting to Rodriguez as he ran for the door. "Call backup to the registry office on Franklin Street. Possible hostage situation." "In this weather," Rodriguez called after him. "Riley, wait." But the detective was already gone, charging into the bitter night, unaware that the anonymous call had come from Steele's mysterious employer. A calculated move in a game Riley didn't yet understand. Back at the registry office, Lisa worked frantically to pry open the door with a letter opener, while Emma, breathing steadier now, examined the bomb with a child's curiosity mixed with terror. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "it looks like the ones in my science book." Lisa abandoned the door, kneeling beside her daughter. "What do you mean?" "Last month we learned about circuits. This has wires like the picture showed." Emma pointed to the device's exposed wiring, careful not to touch anything. "Red is usually power, black is ground." Lisa stared at her daughter in amazement. David had always said Emma had his analytical mind, but Lisa had never fully appreciated it until this moment. "Do you think could we disable it?" Emma bit her lip. "Maybe, but if we do it wrong." The unspoken consequence hung in the air between them as the timer continued. 12:47, 12:46. "We need to try something else first," Lisa decided, moving to her desk. She grabbed a stapler and approached the window. "Stand back, Emma." With all her strength, Lisa slammed the stapler against the window. The double-paned glass, designed to withstand Pennsylvania winters, cracked but didn't break. She struck again and again, desperation fueling each blow. Finally, a small hole formed, not large enough to escape through, but perhaps enough to signal for help. Lisa grabbed her red scarf, pushing it through the hole and securing it outside. In the darkness and frost, it was a pitiful beacon, but it was something. "Keep looking for another way out," Lisa instructed, returning to the door. "There has to be something we're missing." As Emma searched the room's perimeter, Lisa's mind raced through the building's layout. The registry office occupied the former City Hall's 3rd floor, converted during renovations 12 years ago. The original building had been constructed in 1896, with additions in the 1920s and 60s. If she remembered correctly from the building's historical placards, the East Wing, where they were trapped, had once housed the mayor's office, with "Emma, the bookshelves!" Lisa exclaimed, rushing to the heavy oak shelving unit that covered the far wall. This building had private passages for officials to enter their offices without walking through public corridors. Together they began pulling books from shelves, searching for a hidden switch or lever. The timer read 10:32. "Nothing," Lisa finally admitted, dejected. "I was so sure." Emma suddenly clutched her mother's sleeve, pointing to a small vent near the floor, partially hidden by a filing cabinet. "What about that?" The vent cover was larger than standard, about 2 feet square. Lisa pushed the cabinet aside and unscrewed the cover with a letter opener, revealing a dusty maintenance shaft. "It's too small for me," Lisa realized, "but you could fit." Emma's eyes widened with understanding and fear. "I'm not leaving you." "Emma Rose Morgan," Lisa said firmly, gripping her daughter's shoulders. "Listen to me. You need to crawl through this shaft, find an exit, find help. But the bomb, I'll keep trying to disable it." Lisa forced confidence into her voice. "Your father wouldn't want us both to." She couldn't finish the sentence. "He would want me to save you." "I can help with the bomb," Emma countered, her father's determination shining through. "Please, Mom." The timer clicked past 10 minutes as Lisa wavered, torn between sending her daughter to safety and keeping her close during what might be their final moments together. Meanwhile, across town, Victor Steele sat in his idling car, watching frost accumulate on the windshield. The hard drive and documents lay on the passenger seat beside him. His instructions had been explicit: retrieve the files, eliminate witnesses, deliver the package to a locker at the Greyhound terminal. Simple. So why did he feel uneasy? The child. There had been a child's backpack in the office, a lunch box with cartoon characters. He dismissed it, assuming the items belonged to a colleague's kid visiting after school. But then that wheeze he'd heard in the hallway. "Not my problem," Steele muttered, putting the car in drive. Even if someone else had been in the office, they'd be gone in. He checked his watch. 9 minutes. The bomb would erase all evidence, just as the weather would cover his tracks. Yet as he pulled away from the curb, his rearview mirror caught a glimpse of the old city hall turned registry office, frost swirling around its brick architecture like restless spirits. Something nagged at his conscience, a rarity for a man who had committed countless murders without remorse. The child's backpack had a name tag. He'd glimpsed it briefly: Emma Morgan. Morgan, the same surname as his target. "Damn it," Steele hissed, suddenly realizing there might have been a witness after all. A child hidden somewhere in that office. A child who might have seen his face. He reached for his burner phone, hesitated, then made a decision he would soon regret. He needed to ensure no witnesses remained. The delivery could wait. Steele made a U-turn, heading back toward the registry office through increasingly treacherous streets. Inside the office, Lisa had made her decision. "We'll try to disable it together," she told Emma, "but if we can't do it in 4 minutes, you're going through that vent. No arguments." Emma nodded solemnly, and together they carefully examined the bomb. The timer showed 8:45. "What did your science book say about circuits?" Lisa asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Emma recalled her lessons, brow furrowed in concentration. "If you break the circuit, the electricity stops flowing." She pointed to where several wires connected to the timing mechanism. "But in the movies, they always say cutting the wrong wire makes it explode." "This isn't the movies," Lisa said, though she wasn't at all confident. We need to make an educated guess. As they debated which wire might safely disable the device, Lisa's mind flashed back to a conversation with David years ago. He'd been telling her about a case involving an improvised explosive, explaining how bomb technicians approach such devices. The simplest solution is usually best, he'd said. These aren't sophisticated engineering works. They're cobbled together by amateurs following internet instructions. Lisa stared at the bomb's power source, a simple battery pack. Emma, what if we don't cut any wires? What if we just remove the batteries? But if it has a tamper switch? Emma began, again showing knowledge beyond her years. Like I said, this isn't the movies, Lisa repeated, more to convince herself than Emma. Let's look for any wires that might indicate a tamper switch. They carefully examined the device, finding nothing that obviously connected the battery compartment to the detonator. The timer read 6:30. I'm going to try it, Lisa decided. Stand back by the vent if anything happens. Mom, no, Emma pleaded. Trust me, Lisa said, with more confidence than she felt. Your father always said I had steady hands. That's why he let me trim his beard. The memory brought a faint smile to Emma's lips, despite the circumstances. Lisa waited until her daughter had retreated to the far wall. Then, with trembling fingers belying her claim of steady hands, she carefully began to slide the battery pack from its housing. The timer continued to count down. 5:59, 5:58. Suddenly, the office lights flickered again, more violently this time, and went out completely, plunging the room into darkness save for the bomb's glowing digital display. 5:55. Mom, Emma cried out. It's okay, Lisa called back, heart pounding. The storm must have affected the power. Stay where you are. In the dim red glow from the timer, Lisa could barely see the battery connections. She fumbled blindly, feeling her way around the device. Her fingers brushed against a wire, and the timer abruptly jumped from 5:47 to 2:50. No, Lisa gasped. Something she'd touched had malfunctioned, cutting their remaining time almost in half. Now they had just 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Emma, Lisa said urgently, the vent now. This time Emma didn't argue. She crawled toward the open vent shaft as Lisa continued her desperate attempt to disable the bomb. The backup emergency lights activated, casting an eerie yellow glow through the room. I see light at the end of the shaft, Emma called, halfway into the vent. I think it goes to another room. Go, Lisa urged, still working on the battery pack. Find help if you can, but get yourself to safety first. As Emma disappeared into the shaft, Lisa returned her full attention to the bomb. The timer now read 2:16. With newfound determination, her daughter might be safe. At least, Lisa carefully resumed her attempt to disconnect the power source. Outside, Detective Riley battled through streets rapidly becoming impassable. His police cruiser fishtailed around a corner, barely missing a parked car. The registry office was still 8 blocks away, and at this rate, he wouldn't make it in time. Though in time for what, he wasn't entirely sure. The anonymous call had offered no specifics, only an ominous deadline, now less than 5 minutes away. Riley grabbed his radio. Dispatch, any units closer to the registry office than I am? Negative, detective, came the crackling response. All available units responding to weather-related accidents. ETA to your location, approximately 15 minutes. Too long. Whatever was happening at the registry office, Lisa and Emma would face it alone unless he could get there. Riley pressed the accelerator harder, praying for traction on the ice-slicked streets. Back at the office, Lisa had managed to partially disconnect the battery pack, but the timer continued its countdown. 1:32, 1:31. Suddenly, the door handle jiggled. Lisa froze, hope and fear colliding. Had help arrived? The door burst open, revealing not a rescuer but Victor Steele, frost covering his shoulders, gun drawn. "Where is she?" he demanded, scanning the room. "Where's the child?" Lisa's blood turned to ice. He'd come back for Emma. "There's no child here," Lisa lied, positioning herself to block the vent from view. "Just me." Steele's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Don't lie to me. I saw the backpack." His gaze fell on the bomb timer, now reading 1 minute 5 seconds. "Doesn't matter. You'll both be gone soon anyway." He turned to leave, but Lisa called after him, desperate to keep him from searching for Emma. "Why are you doing this? What did my husband find?" Steele paused, considering. With less than a minute before detonation, what harm was there in satisfying her curiosity? "Your husband discovered that Vincent Hunter's entire empire is built on fraud and money laundering," he explained with chilling casualness. "Illegal land acquisitions, shell companies, bribery of officials. Hunter couldn't let that information get out." "So you killed David," Lisa said, pieces finally fitting together. "And now you're tying up loose ends." Steele shrugged. "Business is business." The timer read 38 seconds. "You should leave," Lisa advised, a strange calm settling over her. "Unless you want to die too." Steele smirked. "Trying to save me? How touching." Nevertheless, he backed toward the door. "Goodbye, Mrs. Morgan. Say hello to your husband for me." As he turned to leave, a small figure emerged from a ceiling vent in the hallway behind him. Emma, who had navigated the building's ductwork, only to find herself face to face with her father's killer. Their eyes met. Recognition flashed across Steele's face, followed by alarm. The child had seen him at the registry office and possibly at the courthouse 3 years ago. A witness. "You," he snarled, raising his gun toward Emma. "No," Lisa screamed, lunging forward despite the bomb's timer now showing just 23 seconds. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Steele, distracted by Lisa's movement, failed to notice the large figure charging down the hallway behind Emma. Detective Thomas Riley, who had abandoned his car 4 blocks away and run the remaining distance through ice and bitter wind. Riley tackled Steele from behind, the gun discharging into the ceiling as both men crashed to the floor. Emma scrambled away from the struggling figures, back toward her mother. "The bomb," Lisa shouted to Riley as Emma reached her. 12 seconds. Riley slammed Steele's head against the floor, rendering him unconscious, then sprinted into the office. Without hesitation, he grabbed the device, ripped the battery pack completely free, and hurled the bomb into the empty fireplace across the room. The timer froze at 04, then went dark. For a moment, nobody moved. The only sound was their ragged breathing and the distant howl of the wind outside. Then Lisa pulled Emma into a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her face. "Are you okay?" she asked, checking her daughter for injuries. Emma nodded, then looked up at Riley with solemn eyes. "Uncle Thomas, that's the man who hurt Daddy." Riley stared at the unconscious Steele, then back at Emma, voice gentle but urgent. "Emma, are you absolutely certain? This is very important." I'm sure, she said with the unwavering conviction of a child who has carried a terrible truth for too long. He was there the day Daddy died. I saw him. The scorpion. As the implications of Emma's statement sank in, Riley knelt beside her, voice gentle but urgent. Emma, are you absolutely certain this is very important? I'm sure, she said with the unwavering conviction of a child who has carried a terrible truth for too long. He was there the day Daddy died. I saw him. The scorpion tattoo. The cold front that had descended upon Riverside reached its furious peak as midnight approached. Emergency vehicles, their lights casting red and blue patterns against the frost-covered landscape, surrounded the old City Hall building. Paramedics had arrived 20 minutes earlier, examining Lisa and Emma in the back of an ambulance, while police officers secured the unconscious Steele. Detective Riley stood in the building's entranceway, frost collecting on his shoulders as he spoke urgently into his radio. I need a full security detail at Riverside General Hospital. 2 officers minimum, round the clock. He paused, listening to the response. I don't care if we're short-staffed because of the weather. Make it happen. He glanced toward the ambulance where Lisa sat wrapped in a blanket, holding Emma close to her side. The girl's testimony had just blown open a 3-year-old murder case, potentially implicating one of Riverside's most powerful citizens. If Vincent Hunter was indeed behind David Morgan's death, Riley knew that Lisa and Emma would remain in danger until he was apprehended. Detective Riley, the voice came from behind him. Dr. Rebecca Stone, who had arrived with the second ambulance. A respected physician at Riverside General, Rebecca had been the one to pronounce David Morgan dead 3 years ago. Now her presence at this scene seemed oddly coincidental. Dr. Stone, Riley acknowledged. I didn't expect to see you at a crime scene. I was on call for emergency services tonight, she explained, tucking a strand of blonde hair beneath her winter hat. When I heard the address, I insisted on coming personally. She lowered her voice. Is it true the Morgans were attacked? Riley studied her face carefully. Rebecca had been a friend of the family. She'd attended David's funeral, sent flowers on the anniversary of his death. Yet something in her expression now struck him as too intense, too invested. They're safe, he said simply, revealing nothing more. You should head back to the hospital. We'll bring them in for examination shortly. Rebecca's gaze drifted to the ambulance. I'd like to speak with them first, for medical reasons. That won't be necessary, Riley replied firmly. We have paramedics assessing them now. A flicker of something annoyance, concern, crossed Rebecca's face before she nodded and turned back toward her vehicle. Riley watched her go, making a mental note to look into Dr. Stone more carefully. In cases like this, coincidences made him uneasy. Inside the ambulance, Emma sat still as the paramedic checked her heart rate. The medication had helped stabilize her condition, but the emotional trauma of the evening remained etched on her small face. Is the bad man going to prison now? She asked her mother, voice barely above a whisper. Lisa stroked her daughter's hair. Yes, sweetheart, Detective Riley will make sure of it. But what about the other bad man, the one who paid him? Lisa exchanged a look with the paramedic, who discreetly stepped outside to give them privacy. Hunter, Lisa said quietly. Uncle Thomas will find him too. Your testimony is very important, Emma. You're the only person who can connect Steele to what happened to Dad. Emma nodded solemnly. I never forgot his face, the scorpion. Sometimes I see it in my nightmares. Lisa felt a stab of guilt. For 3 years, Emma had carried this memory alone, too traumatized to speak of it, while Lisa had been too consumed by her own grief to recognize her daughter's silent burden. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Lisa asked gently. Emma looked down at her hands. "I tried once. You were crying looking at Daddy's pictures. I said I remembered the bad man, but you just hugged me and said it was okay, that the bad man was gone." Her voice trembled slightly. "I thought maybe I was wrong, that maybe my brain made it up. Daddy always said memories can trick you." Lisa pulled her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. All this time, the key to solving David's murder had been locked inside her daughter's memory, while Lisa had unwittingly pursued the same investigation through property records. Outside, Riley approached the ambulance, his expression grave. "We need to move you both to the hospital. It's not safe here." "You think Hunter might send someone else?" Lisa asked, keeping her voice low so Emma wouldn't hear. Riley nodded. "If Steele doesn't check in, Hunter will know something went wrong. I've called for security detail, but we need to move quickly." As they prepared to leave, Riley handed Lisa a plastic evidence bag containing the external hard drive they'd recovered from Steele. "Tech team made a copy. They're analyzing it now, but I thought you should have this. It was David's work." Lisa took the bag, her hand trembling slightly. "All this time, I've been trying to figure out what David discovered. It was right there in my office." Riley helped them into a police cruiser equipped with snow chains. As they pulled away from the registry office, Lisa glanced back at the old City Hall building, windows glowing warmly against the frosty night. For 3 years, she'd sought answers about her husband's death. Now that those answers seemed within reach, she felt not closure, but a mounting sense of dread. "Where are we taking them?" The officer driving the cruiser asked Riley. "Riverside General," Riley began, then hesitated. "Actually, no. Take us to County Medical instead." "That's 15 miles in this weather," the officer protested. "Exactly," Riley said grimly. "Anyone looking for them will check Riverside General first." Lisa understood immediately. "You think someone at Riverside General can't be trusted?" Riley kept his voice low, mindful of Emma dozing against her mother's shoulder. "Let's just say I don't like coincidences. Dr. Stone showing up at the scene tonight struck me as odd." "Rebecca," Lisa's eyebrows rose in surprise. "She was David's friend. She's been our family doctor for years." "Which would give her perfect access to your family's routines and information," Riley pointed out. "When was the last time you actually spoke with her?" Lisa thought for a moment. "Not since David's funeral. She sent cards, flowers sometimes, but we haven't seen her professionally since we switched to Dr. Patterson for Emma's heart condition." Riley nodded, pieces connecting in his mind. "Yet she was very insistent about speaking with you tonight. Claimed she was on emergency call rotation, but that's something we can verify." The cruiser moved slowly through the weather, windshield wipers, fighting a losing battle against the accumulating frost. In the back seat, Emma stirred slightly in her sleep, murmuring something inaudible before settling again against her mother's side. "How much danger are we in?" Lisa asked quietly. Riley met her gaze in the rearview mirror. "I won't lie to you, Lisa. If Hunter is behind this, if he ordered David's murder and sent Steele to eliminate you, he won't stop now. But I promise you, I won't let anything happen to either of you." The remainder of the journey passed in tense silence, the storm growing even fiercer as they left Riverside's city limits. Twice, they had to slow to a crawl to navigate around abandoned vehicles. What should have been a 30-minute drive stretched beyond an hour and a half. When they finally arrived at County Medical Center, Riley personally escorted Lisa and Emma inside, hypervigilant as medical staff conducted their examinations. Emma's heart condition had stabilized, but doctors wanted to keep her overnight for observation. Lisa refused to leave her daughter's side, so a second bed was brought into the private room, secured by armed officers. "Get some rest," Riley told them, standing at the doorway. "I'll be right outside all night." "What about Steele?" Lisa asked. "In custody, under guard at Riverside General. He regained consciousness, but isn't talking yet. Once the weather clears, we'll transfer him to a more secure facility." Riley hesitated, then added, "There's something else you should know. I've requested protective custody for both of you, pending Hunter's arrest. Witness protection." "Witness protection," Lisa whispered, the implications sinking in. "You think it's that serious?" Riley's weathered face was solemn. "Hunter has connections everywhere, business, politics, maybe even law enforcement. Until we know who we can trust, we need to be extremely careful." After Riley left, Lisa sat by the window, watching the frost accumulate on the glass, her mind racing despite her exhaustion. The hospital room was warm and secure, with officers stationed both inside and outside the door. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that they remained in grave danger. On the bed, Emma slept fitfully, occasional whimpers escaping her lips as nightmares invaded her rest. Lisa moved to her daughter's side, gently stroking her hair until she settled once more. "I'm so sorry," Lisa whispered. "I should have seen what you were carrying." Down the hall, Riley paced the corridor, phone pressed to his ear. "Rodriguez, I need you to run a background check on Dr. Rebecca Stone." Quietly. He listened for a moment. "No, don't use department resources. Do it off the books. I'm not sure who we can trust right now." As dawn approached, the storm finally began to abate, gray light seeping through hospital windows. Lisa had managed a few hours of restless sleep in the chair beside Emma's bed when her phone vibrated with an incoming text from Riley. "Need to speak with you." Hallway. Lisa checked that Emma was still sleeping, then slipped out to where Riley waited, his expression tense. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "Steele escaped custody an hour ago," Riley said without preamble. "Someone posing as a doctor entered his room at Riverside General and overpowered the guard." Lisa felt the blood drain from her face. "How is that possible? You said he was under guard." "The guard was found unconscious, injection mark on his neck. Security cameras in that wing mysteriously malfunctioned during the 8-minute window when it happened." Riley ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "This wasn't opportunistic, Lisa. It was planned, professional." "Hunter," Lisa whispered. Riley nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I had Rodriguez run that background check on Dr. Stone. She completed her residency at Johns Hopkins 12 years ago, specializing in emergency medicine. But before medical school, she worked for 4 years as a forensic accountant." Lisa's mind raced to process this information. "You think she's connected to all this?" "Her first accounting job was at Hunter Development." Riley let that sink in before continuing. "And here's the kicker. She was David's primary physician for the last 2 years of his life. Annual physicals, prescription renewals, everything. Lisa leaned against the wall for support as implications crashed over her. She would have known his medical history, his schedules, and potentially had access to anything he might have confided during appointments. "We need to move you and Emma immediately," Riley finished. "If Stone is working with Hunter and Steele is free." A sudden commotion erupted from the nurse's station. Down the hall, raised voices, the sound of something heavy falling. Riley instinctively pushed Lisa behind him, drawing his service weapon. "Get back in the room with Emma," he ordered. "Lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me." Lisa hurried back to the hospital room, heart pounding as she secured the door behind her. Through the small window, she could see Riley advancing cautiously toward the disturbance, gun raised. "Mom," Emma's small voice came from the bed. "What's happening?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Lisa lied, moving to her daughter's side. "Uncle Thomas is just checking something outside." The voices grew louder. Lisa recognized one with a jolt of fear, Dr. Rebecca Stone, demanding to see Emma Morgan. "I'm her physician of record," Rebecca's voice carried through the door. "I have rights to see my patient." "Not according to our records," a nurse responded firmly. "Dr. Patterson is listed as her primary care doctor." "This is ridiculous," Rebecca snapped. "I've known that family for years. David Morgan was my patient before he." "Before what doctor?" Riley's voice cut in sharply. Lisa moved to the door's small window, peering out to see Riley confronting Rebecca at the nurse's station. His weapon now holstered, but his posture unmistakably threatening. "Detective Riley," Rebecca acknowledged coolly. "I was just explaining that I should be permitted to check on Emma. I have concerns about her heart medication interacting with—" "Save it," Riley interrupted. "You're not going anywhere near that child. In fact, you're going to come with me right now to answer some questions about your relationship with Vincent Hunter." Rebecca's composed expression faltered momentarily before she recovered, laughing lightly. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other patients to see." As she turned to leave, Riley placed a hand on her arm. "That wasn't a request, doctor." What happened next occurred with stunning speed. Rebecca's right hand emerged from her lab coat pocket, holding not a medical instrument, but a small caliber pistol, which she pressed directly against Riley's abdomen. "Remove your hand," she said quietly, all pretense abandoned, "or I'll put a bullet through your liver. A slow, painful death that I'm uniquely qualified to ensure you suffer through completely." Riley slowly released her arm but didn't back away. "You're not walking out of this hospital, Rebecca. It's surrounded by police." "Perhaps," she conceded with unnerving calm, "but I'll certainly make it to the Morgan's room. Now, your weapon. Slide it across the floor, slowly." From her vantage point at the door window, Lisa watched in horror as Riley complied, his service pistol skidding across the polished hospital floor. "Now," Rebecca said, "you're going to take me to Emma. The child remembers too much, and we can't have that, can we?" Lisa backed away from the door, mind racing. They were trapped, a single exit, armed guard now neutralized, Riley disarmed, and Rebecca Stone, family friend, doctor, apparent assassin, approaching with a gun. "Emma," Lisa whispered urgently, rushing to her daughter's bedside. "We need to hide." Confusion and fear mingled in Emma's eyes. "What's wrong, Mom?" "There's no time to explain." Lisa scanned the room desperately. Standard hospital layout, bed, bathroom, closet, window. The window was sealed shut, and they were on the 4th floor. Besides, the bathroom offered no escape route, just a shower and toilet. The closet was barely large enough for hospital supplies. Footsteps approached outside, accompanied by Riley's voice, strained, clearly under duress. "Lisa, it's Thomas. I need you to open the door." Lisa placed a finger to her lips, signaling Emma to remain silent. She helped her daughter from the bed, wincing at the sound of the IV pole rolling across the floor as Emma disconnected it from her arm with practiced ease. "Lisa, please," Riley called again. "Dr. Stone needs to check Emma's breathing." The door handle rattled. Lisa motioned Emma toward the bathroom, but before they could reach it, Rebecca's voice cut through. "Catherine, I know you can hear me. Open this door in the next 8 seconds, or I'll put a bullet in your friend's head. Your daughter already lost her father. Does she need to witness another death?" Emma's eyes widened with recognition and terror. "That's Dr. Stone," she whispered. "Why does she sound so mean?" Lisa's mind flashed back to the countless appointments, the sympathetic smiles, the gentle way Rebecca had broken the news of David's death. All an act. How long had she been working for Hunter? Had she been spying on David throughout his investigation? 5 seconds, Catherine." Lisa locked eyes with her daughter. "Under the bed," she mouthed silently, pointing. "All the way against the wall. Don't make a sound no matter what happens." Emma hesitated only briefly before nodding and sliding beneath the hospital bed, pressing herself against the wall where the shadows were deepest. Lisa quickly arranged the blankets to hang lower, better concealing the space underneath. "I'm coming," Lisa called, moving toward the door. She took a deep breath, trying to channel David's courtroom composure. Rebecca was here for Emma, the only witness who could identify Steele and connect him to both crimes. Lisa needed to convince her that Emma wasn't in the room. She opened the door to find Rebecca pressing her pistol against Riley's side. The detective's face was taut with controlled fear and anger. "Where's Emma?" Rebecca demanded immediately, eyes scanning the room. "They took her for a CT scan," Lisa lied smoothly. "One of the doctors was concerned about her heart patterns during sleep." Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Which doctor?" "I don't remember his name. Older man, gray beard," Lisa gestured vaguely. "They said they'd be about 25 minutes. "You're lying." Rebecca pushed past Lisa into the room, dragging Riley with her. "Emma," she called, "come out, sweetheart. It's Dr. Stone. I just want to make sure you're feeling better." Lisa caught Riley's eye, saw him glance briefly toward his ankle. A backup weapon. Hope flared in her chest. "She's not here," Lisa insisted. "Check the bathroom if you don't believe me." Rebecca shoved Riley toward a chair. "Sit, don't move." She kept the gun trained on him while backing toward the bathroom, pushing the door open with her free hand. The momentary distraction was all Riley needed. In one fluid motion, he reached for his ankle holster, withdrew a small revolver, and fired. The shot went wide as Rebecca spun back, her own weapon discharging with a deafening crack in the confined space. Riley clutched his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers, but managed to fire again. This time his aim was true. Rebecca staggered backward, her white lab coat blossoming red at the abdomen. Her pistol clattered to the floor. "Lisa, get down," Riley shouted, but it was too late. Rebecca lunged forward with surprising strength for someone just shot, tackling Lisa. Both women crashed into the medical equipment cart, sending instruments flying. Lisa's head struck the edge of the bed frame, and stars exploded across her vision. "You've ruined everything," Rebecca hissed, hands finding Lisa's throat. "Years of work, millions of dollars, all jeopardized because you couldn't leave it alone." Lisa fought desperately, clawing at Rebecca's hands, struggling to breathe. Riley tried to stand but collapsed. His gunshot wound more serious than it had first appeared. "Mom," Emma's terrified voice cut through Lisa's fading consciousness. She'd emerged from under the bed, standing frozen by the bathroom door. Rebecca's head snapped toward the sound, her grip loosening just enough for Lisa to suck in a ragged breath. "There you are," Rebecca said, a chilling smile spreading across her face despite the blood soaking her clothing. "The star witness." "Run, Emma," Lisa gasped. But Emma didn't run. Instead, something shifted in her expression, fear, giving way to a cold determination Lisa had seen countless times on David's face before a difficult case. With calculated precision, Emma grabbed the fire extinguisher from its wall mount and discharged it directly at Rebecca's face. The doctor reeled backward, temporarily blinded and choking on the chemical powder. Lisa seized the opportunity, delivering a desperate kick that sent Rebecca sprawling. Riley, despite his injury, managed to retrieve his fallen weapon and train it on the doctor. "Don't move," he ordered through gritted teeth. Rebecca lay still, breathing heavily, blood pooling beneath her. "You're too late," she said, a strange smile playing across her lips. "Steele is already free, and Hunter has contingency plans you can't imagine." As if summoned by her words, an explosion rocked the hospital, distant, but powerful enough to shake the room. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the building. "That'll be the East Wing," Rebecca said with disturbing satisfaction, "where your backup officers are stationed. Hunter's very thorough." Outside in the corridor, panicked voices and running footsteps signaled the hospital's emergency protocols activating. Riley staggered to the door, locking it before collapsing into a chair, his face ashen from blood loss. "Lisa," he managed, "we need to get out." Lisa pulled Emma close, shielding her daughter's eyes from the blood-spattered room. "How?" "The explosion service elevator," Riley interrupted, gesturing weakly toward the window. "Across the courtyard. Maintenance building. Key." He fumbled in his pocket, producing a universal hospital key. "From my undercover days." From her position on the floor, Rebecca laughed, a wet, unpleasant sound. "You'll never make it. The corridors will be crawling with Hunter's men by now." Lisa glanced at the window. The morning sun revealed that the storm had passed, leaving behind a transformed landscape. 4 stories below, the hospital's central courtyard lay blanketed in pristine white, with a maintenance building visible on the opposite side. "The sheets," Lisa said suddenly, maternal instinct giving way to desperate innovation. "We can tie them together. The snow below is at least 2 feet deep from the storm." "You'd risk your daughter's life on a Hollywood stunt," Rebecca mocked, blood bubbling at her lips. "The fall will kill her." "Mom," Emma's voice wavered with uncertainty. Lisa knelt before her daughter, hands on her small shoulders. "Do you trust me?" Emma nodded without hesitation. "We're going to climb down from the window using sheets tied together, like in your adventure books. It might be scary, but I'll be right with you." As Lisa and Riley worked quickly to knot the sheets into a makeshift rope, another explosion sounded closer this time. The hospital lights flickered ominously. They're working their way through the building, Riley said grimly, wincing as he secured the sheet rope to the heavy radiator beneath the window. Systematic search pattern. Lisa tested the strength of their creation, praying it would hold. What about you? You're injured. Riley shook his head. I'll stay, hold them off as long as I can, buy you time to get to my car. He pressed his keys into Lisa's hand. Blue Ford in the west lot, space 28, gun in the glove compartment. Thomas, no, listen to me, Riley cut her off, voice urgent but gentle. David was my best friend. Emma is my goddaughter. Let me do this. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes as she recognized the immovable resolve in his expression. The same stubborn determination that had defined his 28-year career. Rebecca laughed again from her position on the floor, blood now pooling significantly around her. So touching, the noble sacrifice. Hunter will still find them, you know. He has resources everywhere. Riley ignored her, focusing instead on opening the window. The bitter winter air rushed in as he pushed the pane outward. I've radioed for backup from state police, but in this weather, they're at least 25 minutes out. You need to get Emma somewhere safe until then. Lisa helped Emma into her coat and shoes, mind racing through potential safe havens. Not home, not the police station, both would be watched. Where could they go that Hunter wouldn't think to look? As Riley secured the makeshift rope, Lisa suddenly remembered something David had once mentioned, a nature preserve cabin owned by his uncle, so remote it lacked an actual address. They'd visited once when Emma was a toddler. Would it still be there? Did she even remember how to find it? Another explosion, close enough to rattle the window glass. Time had run out. Go, Riley urged, helping Emma onto the windowsill. I'll hold them as long as I can. Lisa embraced him quickly, this loyal friend who had stood by their family through everything. Thank you, Thomas. Find David's evidence, he replied softly. Finish what he started. With that, Lisa climbed onto the windowsill beside her daughter, gripped the knotted sheets, and prepared to lower them into the unknown, leaving Riley alone with the dying Rebecca Stone and the approaching footsteps of Hunter's men. The descent down the makeshift rope was both interminable and too quick. Lisa went first, testing each knot with her weight before signaling Emma to follow. The bitter January wind whipped around them, numbing fingers and stealing breath. 4 stories had never seemed so high. Don't look down, Lisa called up to Emma, who moved with surprising agility for a child who'd spent the night in a hospital bed. Just focus on the next handhold. When Lisa's feet finally crunched into the deep snow of the courtyard, relief flooded through her, quickly replaced by renewed urgency as she helped Emma navigate the final few feet. Above them, muffled gunshots echoed from their abandoned room. Riley was buying them time at what cost? Lisa couldn't bear to consider. This way, she whispered, pulling Emma toward the maintenance building. The snow reached mid-calf, their progress slower than Lisa would have liked, but they left a trail too obvious to miss. They needed transportation, and quickly. The service elevator Riley had mentioned was keycard protected, but the universal key worked as promised. As the ancient elevator groaned its way down to the parking garage, Lisa held Emma close, her daughter trembling not just from cold, but from the accumulated trauma of the past 20 hours. You've been so brave, Lisa murmured into Emma's hair. Your father would be so proud. Emma looked up, her blue eyes, David's eyes, filled with a wisdom no 9-year-old should possess. Is Uncle Thomas going to die like Daddy did? The question stabbed at Lisa's heart. How could she answer? Lying would dishonor Emma's perceptiveness, but the truth was too brutal to voice. Uncle Thomas is very good at his job, Lisa said finally. He's helped a lot of people over the years. Emma seemed to understand what Lisa couldn't say. She nodded solemnly as the elevator doors opened to the dim parking garage. They found Riley's car exactly where he'd said it would be. Lisa unlocked it with shaking hands, helped Emma into the passenger seat, then retrieved the gun from the glove compartment. The weight of it felt alien in her hand. David had taken her shooting exactly once during their marriage, a brief lesson she'd found distasteful. Now she checked the chamber with unpracticed movements, praying she wouldn't need to use it. As they pulled out of the parking garage, Lisa caught sight of emergency vehicles converging on the hospital's main entrance. No sign of pursuit yet, but that wouldn't last. Where could they go? The nature preserve cabin remained their best option, but it was nearly 2 hours north, assuming the roads were passable after the storm. They needed a temporary haven first, somewhere to regroup, somewhere unexpected. Emma, Lisa said as they merged onto the main road, constantly checking the rearview mirror. Do you remember Mrs. Kowalski? Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. The old lady with all the birds, from your book club. That's right, Maria Kowalski, 84 years old and proudly technology-free. No cell phone, no internet, not even cable television. She lived on the outskirts of Riverside in a cottage surrounded by oak trees, and was unlikely to have heard about the hospital incident yet. More importantly, no connection between her and the Morgans would exist in any searchable record. We're going to visit her for a little while, Lisa explained, taking a circuitous route through residential streets, watching carefully for any sign of pursuit. They arrived at Maria's cottage 15 minutes later. The elderly woman answered her door in a faded house coat, gray hair in rollers, skepticism turning to concern as she took in their disheveled appearance. Lisa, what on earth? Maria, I'm sorry to impose, Lisa interrupted, but we need a place to stay for just a few hours. I can't explain everything right now. Something in Lisa's expression must have conveyed the gravity of their situation, for Maria simply nodded and ushered them inside without further questions. The cottage was warm, filled with the comforting sense of herbal tea and freshly baked bread. The guest room is made up, Maria said, leading them through her cluttered living room where several parakeets chirped from various perches. And I believe I have some clothes that might fit the little one. My granddaughter leaves things when she visits. While Emma changed into dry clothes and Maria prepared tea, Lisa found the cottage's landline phone and dialed a number from memory. Public Defender's office answered a familiar voice. Alex, it's Lisa Morgan. A pause. Lisa, my God, you're all over the news. The hospital explosion. I need your help, Lisa cut in. Officially, as my attorney. Alexander Torres had been David's closest friend in the Economic Crimes Unit before switching sides to become a public defender. He and Lisa had remained in contact after David's death, though their interactions had grown increasingly infrequent. Of course, Alex's voice shifted to his professional tone. Attorney-client privilege applies. What do you need? Information, Vincent Hunter. What do you know about him? Alex's silence spoke volumes. Lisa, if you're involved with Hunter, you're in serious trouble. That man doesn't just have connections, He owns half the county commissioners. He had David killed, Lisa said flatly. And now he's trying to kill Emma and me. Another pause. Jesus Christ, do you have proof? We have a witness and possibly evidence on an external drive, though I haven't been able to access it yet. The witness, it's Emma, isn't it? Alex's voice softened. No court will allow testimony from a 9-year-old child about a crime that happened 3 years ago. Not about David's murder, Lisa explained quickly about last night. A man named Victor Steele attacked us at my office. Emma recognized him as the same man who killed David. That changes things. But Lisa, you need proper protection, not whatever you're doing now. Let me contact the FBI. No, Lisa's response was vehement, surprising even herself. Alex, I don't know who to trust. Dr. Stone was working for Hunter. She nearly killed us at the hospital. How many others are on his payroll? Local police? FBI? I can't risk it. What about Riley? I thought he was looking into David's case. Lisa closed her eyes against the surge of grief. He stayed behind at the hospital to give us time to escape. I don't know if she couldn't finish the sentence. Alex was silent for a long moment. Okay, here's what we'll do. I have a friend at the U.S. Marshal Service. Someone I trust completely. No connection to Riverside or Hunter. I'll arrange a meeting somewhere neutral. Thank you, Lisa breathed. There's one more thing. David had a nature preserve cabin inherited from his uncle, up north somewhere. Do you know where it is? Lake Susquehanna, Alex supplied immediately. We used to go fishing there in college. Isolated spot, only accessible by a logging road in winter. David kept it off his official records, some paranoia about asset disclosure when he joined the crime unit. Perfect, a location Hunter wouldn't know about. Can you give me directions? After Alex provided detailed instructions to the cabin, Lisa thanked him and hung up, returning to the kitchen where Emma sat at Maria's table. A steaming mug of tea with honey before her, a yellow parakeet perched on her shoulder. The domestic tranquility of the scene made Lisa's heart ache. We can rest here for a few hours, Lisa told her daughter, accepting the tea Maria offered. Then we have a long drive ahead of us. While Emma napped in the guest room, emotionally and physically exhausted, Lisa finally had a moment to examine the external hard drive they'd recovered from Steele. Maria had an ancient desktop computer in her sewing room, rarely used but functional. Lisa connected the drive, holding her breath as the computer recognized the device. The contents were encrypted, but a text file on the root directory was labeled simply Read First, TXT. Lisa opened it to find a message from her husband, dated 1 week before his death. Lisa, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. The files on this drive contain evidence of financial crimes that implicate some of the most powerful people in Pennsylvania. I've encrypted everything with our wedding anniversary as the password. Take this to Thomas Riley, no one else. Trust no one within the crime unit or the courthouse. I'm sorry for keeping you in the dark. I thought I was protecting you and Emma. I love you both more than life itself. David. Lisa stared at the message, tears blurring her vision. Their wedding anniversary, March 22nd, 2006. She entered the date in the required format, and the drive unlocked, revealing dozens of folders meticulously organized and labeled. She clicked through them rapidly, understanding only portions of what she saw: financial statements, offshore account numbers, photographs of meetings between Hunter and various officials, transcripts of recorded conversations. David had been building not just a property fraud case, but a massive RICO prosecution against Hunter's entire operation. And buried within the evidence, Lisa found what must have signed her husband's death warrant photographs of Dr. Rebecca Stone meeting with Vincent Hunter, passing him what appeared to be medical files. David's medical files, Lisa realized with growing horror. Rebecca hadn't just been spying. She'd been actively helping Hunter by providing confidential medical information about his targets. Lisa was so engrossed in the files that she almost missed the sound of a car pulling into Maria's driveway. She quickly disconnected the drive and moved to the window, carefully peering through the curtains. A police cruiser sat outside, a uniformed officer approaching the front door. "Maria," Lisa called quietly, "is there a back way out?" The elderly woman appeared in the doorway, concern etching deeper lines in her already wrinkled face. "Through the sunroom. It leads to the garden, then the woods." She hesitated. "Lisa, are you in trouble with the police?" "Not the real police," Lisa said grimly. "Please, if they ask, you haven't seen us." Lisa hurried to wake Emma, while Maria went to answer the increasingly insistent knocking. They slipped out through the sunroom just as Lisa heard a man's voice at the front door, not asking, but demanding to know if Maria had seen Lisa Morgan. The woods behind Maria's cottage were dense with pine and bare-branched oak trees. Lisa and Emma moved as quickly as the snow allowed, following a narrow path that Maria had mentioned led eventually to a neighboring property. Riley's car was lost to them now, but they could perhaps find another vehicle or call Alex again for help. They had covered perhaps half a mile when Lisa heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching through snow behind them. She turned to see the officer from Maria's house following their trail, no longer maintaining any pretense of legitimacy as he drew a handgun from his holster. "Mrs. Morgan," he called, "there's nowhere to run. Mr. Hunter just wants to talk." Lisa pulled Emma behind a large pine tree, drawing Riley's gun with shaking hands. "Stay absolutely still," she whispered to her daughter. "Mom," Emma whispered back, clutching Lisa's coat, "there's a house through those trees. I can see a chimney." Lisa peered in the direction Emma indicated. Indeed, perhaps 150 yards away, a curl of smoke rose from a chimney partially visible through the trees. If they could reach it. "When I count to 3, Lisa murmured, "we're going to run as fast as we can toward that house. Don't look back, don't stop for anything. Ready." Emma nodded, her face pale but determined. 1, 2, 3. They burst from their hiding place, sprinting through the snow toward the distant house. Behind them, the man shouted in surprise, then fired a shot going wide, splintering bark from a nearby tree. Lisa had never run so hard in her life, half dragging Emma, when her daughter stumbled in the deep snow. Another shot rang out, closer this time. Lisa didn't dare look back, focusing only on the house growing larger ahead of them. Smoke meant people, witnesses, help. They broke through the tree line into a cleared yard. The house was a substantial 2-story structure with a wraparound porch. Lisa and Emma scrambled up the steps, pounding desperately on the front door. "Help us, please, someone help." The door swung open to reveal a tall, distinguished man in his 60s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed despite the early hour. His expression of surprise turned to recognition as he looked at Lisa. "Mrs. Morgan," he said with unsettling familiarity. What an unexpected pleasure. Lisa stumbled backward in horror as she recognized the man from David's photographs, from newspaper clippings, from charity gala announcements. Vincent Hunter. Please come in, he said with the practiced charm of a lifelong politician. We have much to discuss about your husband's unfortunate obsession with my business affairs. Behind them, the fake officer emerged from the trees, gun now holstered, as he approached the porch with casual confidence. There would be no escape this time. Hunter's smile didn't reach his cold eyes as he addressed Emma directly. And this must be young Emma, the child who remembers too much. Lisa instinctively pushed Emma behind her, Riley's gun still clutched in her trembling hand. The weight of it felt impossibly heavy now as she raised it toward Hunter. Step back, she commanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Vincent Hunter regarded the weapon with mild amusement, as one might view a child's toy. Mrs. Morgan, there's no need for dramatics. Why don't we discuss this situation like civilized people? He gestured toward the warmth of his home. It's freezing out here, and your daughter looks positively blue with cold. The last civilized person who wanted to talk killed my husband and tried to bomb us, Lisa replied, keeping the gun trained on him. I think we'll stay right here. Hunter sighed with theatrical patience. If I wanted you dead, Mrs. Morgan, you wouldn't have made it through the woods. He nodded toward the man who had pursued them, now standing at the bottom of the porch steps. Patterson could have shot you both a dozen times over. Emma peered around her mother, studying Hunter with an intensity that belied her 9 years. You're the man from Daddy's pictures, she said suddenly. The one he said was hurting people with money. Something flickered across Hunter's composed features, surprise, perhaps, or discomfort at being so directly addressed by the child. He recovered quickly, offering Emma a grandfatherly smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your father misunderstood some very complicated business matters, he told her. Adults sometimes make mistakes when they don't have all the facts. Don't speak to her, Lisa snapped, tightening her grip on the gun. Hunter's smile faded. Mrs. Morgan, that weapon you're holding belongs to Detective Riley, a man who, I'm sorry to inform you, did not survive the unfortunate gas explosion at County Medical this morning. The news hit Lisa like a physical blow. Thomas gone. David's best friend, Emma's godfather, another good man sacrificed to Hunter's insatiable greed and ambition. You're a monster, she whispered. I'm a businessman, Hunter corrected mildly, one who protects his interests. Now, shall we continue this conversation inside, or would you prefer to freeze to death on my porch while pointing that gun you clearly don't know how to use? Lisa's mind raced through limited options. They couldn't outrun Patterson. The nearest neighbor was likely miles away. The gun in her hand contained only the remaining bullets in its chamber 3, 4, she didn't know. And even if she managed to shoot Hunter, what then? His organization would continue hunting them. What would David do? The question surfaced unbidden in her thoughts. He would find leverage. The hard drive, Lisa said suddenly. I have it and I've seen what's on it. For the first time, Hunter's composure slipped. Where is it? Somewhere safe, Lisa bluffed, with instructions to release the contents to every law enforcement agency and news outlet in the country if anything happens to us. It was a desperate gamble. The drive was actually in her coat pocket, but Hunter didn't need to know that. You're lying, he said. but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Try me," Lisa challenged. David documented everything. The offshore accounts, the bribes to judges and police officials, the money laundering through your charitable foundation. Even Dr. Stone passing confidential medical information to you. Hunter's eyes narrowed. Rebecca was always too careless. "Mom," Emma whispered, tugging at Lisa's coat, "someone's coming." Lisa didn't dare take her eyes off Hunter, but she could hear it now too, the distant sound of vehicles approaching. Multiple engines, growing louder. Hunter heard it as well. He glanced toward the driveway, momentary confusion crossing his features. "I'm not expecting anyone," he murmured, almost to himself. The approaching vehicles rounded the bend in Hunter's long driveway. 3 black SUVs with government plates, followed by 2 state police cruisers. Lisa's heart sank. More of Hunter's people in official vehicles. But Hunter's reaction suggested otherwise. His face paled slightly as he turned to Patterson. "Get the files from my office, all of them, now." Patterson hesitated. "Sir, what about now?" Hunter barked, his cultivated charm evaporating. As Patterson disappeared into the house, the vehicle screeched to a halt in the circular driveway. Men and women in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn, taking positions around the property. "Vincent Hunter," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is U.S. Marshal Patricia Santos. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Hope surged through Lisa. Alex had come through. He'd contacted his friend in the Marshal Service after all. Hunter's expression hardened into something dangerous. "This changes nothing," he told Lisa quietly. "I have contingency plans your husband couldn't begin to imagine. People in places you wouldn't believe." "Federal agents," the marshal called again. "We have a warrant for the arrest of Vincent Hunter. We are authorized to enter the premises by force if necessary." Hunter straightened his already immaculate suit jacket, his mask of civility sliding back into place. "It seems we have company, Mrs. Morgan. Shall we greet them together?" Before Lisa could respond, the front door burst open behind them. Patterson reappeared, but instead of files, he held a shotgun, which he immediately pressed against Emma's temple. "Nobody moves," he shouted toward the federal agents. "We're coming out, and you're going to let us pass." Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Lisa saw the terror in Emma's eyes, felt the weight of Riley's gun in her hand, heard the shouted commands from the marshals. In that crystallized moment, David's voice echoed in her memory from their single shooting less than years ago. "Don't hesitate. Don't second guess. When there's no choice left, you act." Lisa dropped to one knee, pivoted, and fired. The shot was deafening in the confined space of the porch. Patterson crumpled, the shotgun clattering harmlessly to the wooden boards. She'd hit him in the shoulder, not fatal, but enough to incapacitate. Hunter lunged for the fallen shotgun, but Lisa was quicker, kicking it beyond his reach. The marshals swarmed up the steps, securing Hunter and the wounded Patterson as Lisa pulled Emma into her arms, shielding her daughter's eyes from the blood pooling on the porch. Mrs. Morgan, a tall woman in a marshal's jacket, approached. "I'm Deputy Marshal Santos. Alex Torres sent us. You and your daughter are safe now." Safe, the word seemed foreign after the terror of the past 24 hours. Lisa held Emma tighter, watching as Hunter was handcuffed and led toward one of the waiting vehicles. "It's not over," he called back to her, his composure finally shattered. "You think you've won? I have people everywhere. This changes nothing. But his threats rang hollow now as the marshal guided Lisa and Emma toward one of the SUVs. Inside its warm interior, Lisa was shocked to find a familiar face, Detective Thomas Riley. His shoulder heavily bandaged, but very much alive. "Uncle Thomas," Emma cried, flinging herself carefully against his unwounded side. "How?" Lisa asked, tears of relief streaming down her face. Riley managed a pained smile. "Hospital security footage showed Dr. Stone entering my room with a syringe. They switched me to a safe location minutes before the explosion." He nodded toward the marshals. "When Alex Torres contacted them, they found me at the safe house." "And Rebecca," Lisa asked. "Didn't make it," Riley confirmed grimly. "Blood loss from the gunshot wound." As their vehicle pulled away from Hunter's estate, Lisa finally allowed herself to exhale. She watched Emma chatting with Riley, the child's resilience astounding after all they'd endured. "We found something interesting in Hunter's office," Marshal Santos told Lisa quietly. "A hidden safe containing a recorded confession from Victor Steele detailing his role in David Morgan's murder. Hunter kept it as insurance." "Where is Steele now?" Lisa asked. "Apprehended trying to cross the Canadian border an hour ago," Santos replied. "Between his confession, the evidence on your husband's hard drive, and your daughter's testimony about last night, Hunter's operation is finished." Lisa watched the snow-covered landscape pass outside the window, thinking of David, his determination, his integrity, his love for his family. He'd started this fight 3 years ago, and today they'd finally finished it. "Mom," Emma's small voice drew her attention. "Can we go home now?" Lisa reached for her daughter's hand, squeezing it gently. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go home." The epilogue of this remarkable story unfolded over the following months. Vincent Hunter was convicted on multiple charges of racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and bribery. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Victor Steele, in exchange for his testimony against Hunter, received a reduced sentence of 25 years to life. The corruption network that Hunter had built over decades was systematically dismantled. 17 public officials, including 2 judges and several police officers, were indicted. Dr. Rebecca Stone's role in the conspiracy shocked the medical community and led to new protocols for protecting patient confidentiality. Detective Thomas Riley, after recovering from his injuries, was promoted to captain and established a new cold case unit dedicated to investigating unsolved murders involving public corruption. He kept the framed photograph of himself and David Morgan on his new desk, no longer a reminder of failure, but of justice finally served. Lisa Morgan returned to her work at the Land Registry Office, but now with a different purpose. She became an advocate for transparency in public records and worked closely with law enforcement to identify suspicious property transactions. The courage she'd shown during that terrifying night had awakened something in her, a determination to continue David's fight against corruption in a way that honored his memory while protecting their family. Emma Morgan, despite the trauma she'd endured, emerged stronger and more resilient. With proper counseling and her mother's unwavering support, she learned to cope with the nightmares and the memories. Her heart condition stabilized, and she threw herself into her studies with the same analytical mind that had helped save their lives. She often spoke of wanting to become a police detective like Uncle Thomas, to help other children who might face what she had faced. The old City Hall building that housed the Land Registry Office installed a new security system and hired additional guards. A small plaque was placed in the lobby honoring David Morgan's service to the community and his ultimate sacrifice in the fight against corruption. On quiet evenings, when Emma was asleep and the house was still, Lisa would sometimes take out David's files and continue his work, not out of obsession or revenge, but from a deep conviction that the truth mattered, that justice was worth fighting for, and that the innocent deserved protection from those who would exploit their power. The external hard drive that had contained David's evidence was eventually donated to the FBI's training academy, where it was used to teach new agents about the importance of thorough documentation in complex financial crimes. David's methodical approach to building a case became a model for future investigations. As this extraordinary tale of courage and justice comes to close, we're reminded of what truly matters in life. For those of us who have weathered our own storms, who have faced loss and persevered, Lisa and Emma's journey resonates deeply in our hearts. Remember when raising our own children, how we'd have moved heaven and earth to protect them. Lisa's fierce maternal determination mirrors the sacrifices many of us made, sometimes silently, for our families. Detective Riley embodies the unwavering loyalty and old-school integrity that seems increasingly rare in today's world. Values our generation still holds dear. And young Emma, with her incredible resilience, represents hope for the future, reminding us that even our grandchildren can demonstrate extraordinary courage when tested. This story speaks to our deepest fears, being unable to protect those we love, but also to our highest aspirations. That justice will prevail, that truth cannot remain buried forever, and that love transcends even death. David Morgan's presence lived on through his family's determination to finish what he started. In our own lives, isn't that the legacy we all hope to leave behind? Not just memories, but a lasting impact on those whose lives we've touched. Thank you for spending this time with Brad Arrows. We hope the stories whispered through the rain carried you far into your imagination or your dreams. If you're still awake, let us know how you liked the journey. Until next time, stay safe, sleep well, and let the darkness comfort you.